new cream, and it makes my nipples feel very nice.
And we're live.
Hey.
Wow.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to The Unusual Suspects. I'm Connor Walcott, and I know what you're thinking. I am not an angry, red-faced Assyrian comedian named Vincent Oshana. I'm not even your favorite bald, bearded comedian, Rob Gargiulo. If you watched PBD Podcast yesterday, you know that both of them are traveling abroad on some top-secret podcast business. They left the rest of us in charge to figure it out while they were gone, so that's why I'm here. And for all 12 of you who are still watching and going to let me finish, I promise you we have a really, really great episode lined up for you today. Before I go around and say what we're talking about, let's introduce the rest of the panel. It's faces you've seen before. Brandon Aceto, host of the Brandon Aceto Show,
What's
our
up?
resident head researcher. Humberto, the supreme leader of distribution.
Yes.
Guy who lurks around the office with
And the
no
internet.
clear purpose. And, of course, everyone's favorite Thunder from Down Under, host of Dangerous Conversations. You've seen her on Her Take. You've seen her on The Decision with BizDoc, Amy Dangerfield.
Hi, I missed you guys. I missed Unusuals.
Yeah, we're glad to have you
Where
back.
have you been, Loca?
You're my boss. You're the one who told me I can't come on every week
You
if I have
can't.
my own show.
No, you can't. You're doing too many shows.
Okay, so if you guys are mad about it, then you have to blame my supreme leader. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you better
Well, you know
enjoy
what?
this one.
Given how Dangerous Conversations is going, I'd say it was worth it. Thank you to
Yeah.
everyone from The Unusual Suspects who shows up to watch that as well.
Yeah, the
Every
Steves were in the
Saturday.
chat.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. So today we will be talking about some of the biggest news stories that are out there, and it's been a weird week. Not gonna lie. Democrats are about to spend $20 million trying to learn how to talk to men, and according to the prospectus that got reported by the New York Times, they still have no idea what they're doing. Also, OnlyFans might be up for sale for a valuation of $8 billion. So you could say it's arousing the interest of some of the investors out there. Then
Nice.
on what is our big story for the day, the FBI, desperate for a win after last week, if you recall Kash Patel, Dan Bongino saying Epstein definitely killed himself. They have reopened some of the biggest cold cases that are out there right now to dig into political goings-on and finally give us some explanations about the January 6th pipe bomber, the White House cocaine, and some other fun stuff we'll get into. Then the Senate passed no tax on tips. Is that a good thing? Is it not? We will discuss. Speaking of things going on in the Senate Twink. You guys remember that story?
I did not, but you told me about it yesterday
Yeah.
when I asked you.
I
It's
wish I didn't have
insane.
to. I don't want to be the guy who explained that to you.
Really went under the radar.
Yeah.
Like that's something you
That's so
you wouldn't
wild.
think it would just go right by our heads like that.
Well,
Right.
it did, but unfortunately that guy can't keep his mouth or other things shut. So he's
Ooh.
speaking out now, and we have some of the latest on that ridiculous story. Then Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you guys saw that interview he did, or not an interview, a debate.
Panel.
Jubilee. Was it a
Yeah.
Jubilee
It
thing?
was.
Yeah,
Something
Jubilee
like that,
thing.
yeah.
And I hesitate to call it a debate. It was more of a
For
resounding beatdown, unfortunately.
Pounding.
breakdown.
Yeah.
What happened to that senator guy?
Yeah. Speaking of people getting pounded.
Yes.
Jordan Peterson had a very rough debate against a large group of atheists. We will bring you some of that. And if there's time, we might touch on some goings-on overseas in Ukraine and Russia. But before we get into it, I would like to call your attention to the 30-day Monect challenge for the month of May. If you guys know about Monect, it is an app that gives you access to a whole extensive, ever-growing lineup of experts, including everyone on the panel, Vinny, Rob, Amy, Humberto, Brandon, all your favorites, as well as people like Terrence Howard, Lindy Lee, and of course Patrick Bet-David, Tom the BizDoc Ellsworth, and many, many more. We are running a challenge on that app this month. It's kind of funny to be calling it the 30-day Monect challenge. It ends at, 3 days?
Like 2 days, 3 days,
So
but still.
if there's still time to get into it, if you connect with 30 experts by the end of the month, you are eligible to win a custom autographed hat from PBD. If you're a big fan of the
I saw
brand.
the hat is sick.
Yeah.
One of one. I put all my presents down, and I will reply 30 minutes if you do it right now. I will sit all night and reply 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a good investment if it's one-on-one. You
Exactly.
see they sell for like $10,000 on eBay.
Did you see the hat?
I didn't see the hat, but
it's
I saw the
crazy.
eBay prices.
Oof.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But if you're interested, make sure to download Monect today and start connecting. But on that note, let's get into it. So I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the Democrats got their proverbial butts handed to them on a platter in the 2024 election. Not only did Kamala Harris lose to Donald Trump, but they also lost their majority in the Senate, and the Republicans expanded their presence in the House of Representatives. And then all sorts of down-ballot elections didn't go their way either. It's become clear the Democrats really need some help to figure out their situation. Turns out what they're thinking of doing now is asking for help from men. But to quote from a New York Times article that was published just over the weekend, communities that Democrats had come to count on for a generation or more, young people, black voters, Latinos, all veered towards the right in 2024, some of them sharply. And unlike Mr. Trump's win in 2016, his victory last year could not be waved away as an outlier after he won the popular vote the first time. So what have they done? Well, turns out that a bunch of Democrat Party leaders have decided we need to get men back on board. We need to get men specifically to start voting for us again. So that report from the New York Times continues. Democratic donors and strategists have been gathering together at luxury hotels to discuss how to win back working-class voters, commissioning new projects that can read like anthropological studies of people from faraway places. The prospectus of one new $20 million effort obtained by the Times aims to reverse the erosion of Democrat support among young men, especially online. It is codenamed SAM, short for Speaking with American Men, a Strategic Plan, and promises investment to, quote, study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces. It recommends buying advertisements in video games, among other things. So, clearly, they are not learning their lesson. They don't know how to talk to men. Democrats have a huge problem attracting men. So, on that note, let's go to our resident expert about attracting men. Humberto, your thoughts?
Nice.
Good segue. There's nothing they can do about it. I'm telling you, the thing is that the perspective, like, first of all, men, they like to make their own decisions, make their own mind. And the way the Democratic Party talked down, abused, shunned, exposed, men for the good part of the last decade. It's been 10 years of men getting pounded, led by
Seems to be a recurring theme for this episode.
Well, but there's nothing they can do about it. Nothing, because the thing is,
not true.
No, Brandon, the people that are suffering the most is young men. All right, they can't buy a house. They can barely afford a car. They're gonna rent for life.
Some of them can't get jobs because of DEI. A lot of the DEI is rolling back.
They've been pushed from the education system. Now more women, because of DEI programs, are getting higher education. They're pushed from the workplace. They're pushed from everywhere. And they're done. And it's over. I don't think they can do anything about it. No shift in tone, no shift in anything.
No, their problems that they just like shit on anybody who comes along as like a potential person who could be somebody who's popular. Like look at Stephen A. Smith. He could he's no business running for politics, but like he would be very good at it and seems like he's interested. And what does they do? Like the second he even insinuates that he might consider doing it, freaking James Carville comes from his like crusty cave in Louisiana and starts talking shit about him, saying like, oh, if he's gonna go ahead and speak about politics, he should speak to the decision makers first and see if it's okay to say what he thinks he should say. So they're trying to like constantly control the message and like keep people out who might be a threat. So they like just destroy anybody who's like a potential candidate that they don't control. So that's one thing. I mean, it's pretty easy to make dudes like just be cool and
Just
like
be
cool.
cool. Just be a cool dude.
But-
Yeah, and like
Brandon,
they've been making white guys enemy number one. I mean,
they had a chance. Okay, remember the Bernie Bros? All right, they had a chance to do something.
what they do to
cool.
Bernie.
yeah, what did they do?
They threw him under the bus.
Yeah, the super
all right?
delegates.
So, like, everyone was aboard. Joe Rogan, all the cool kids were like Bernie Bros and whatever. He was talking about important stuff. I don't
Well, it was all a
agree.
bunch of bullshit, but
Yeah,
like, it
I don't
sounded
agree
good at
with
least.
it. But it sounded very
He just
nice.
said, "Yeah, I'll make college free for you guys," and they're like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah, 0.1% tax on Wall Street." They're like, "Oh, okay," and like it's not nothing to show that any of that's true or feasible, but that was enough to get like half the young guys in America on board. So I think it's super easy for a Democrat to come along and get guys on board if they actually let that happen, but they refuse to let somebody they don't control get through the system.
Yeah, I think they need to be careful because they might end up substituting one group for another. Because when you think about it, what is the main reason why they went after men? To appease the women, because women saw them as these evil controllers of society. They wanted to empower women with feminism, enough of men running the show. And so they've done this to appease women. If they completely flip their messaging and they focus on going after men, they may attract men back. But then all of the women that they have been, mentally conditioning to only focus on single issue voter things such as like abortion, for example, if they just shift their messaging to focus on men, they may lose all of those women and they're going to be in the exact same position. So I truly, to your point, do not see a path for them to get through this.
There's a path, and if there's a Democrat watching this and they want to get in touch with me, I used to run, political campaigns. I don't think it will go through the mainline Democratic Party, like the establishment Democratic Party. I think rifts, between what the MAGA, Republicans are doing and what the establishment Republicans are doing, there's big lines in between that I don't think anyone politically is able to read. And I don't think a mainstream Democratic Party can make use of the breaks that we're seeing on the right to bring new people over with that are, they're not very happy with what they voted for. But
there's so many young, dumb kids, though, that are like eager to vote Democrat. Like, it's like you're, what do they say? You don't have a heart if you don't vote Democrat when you're young, and you don't have a brain if you're not conservative when you're older. So, like, there's a ton of people who just strip sat out because they're like, oh, you're putting this retard up for us to vote for it? Yeah, no. So if you get, like, any somewhat decent person out there, I think it's super easy to get them on board. I mean, they should just, like, make fun of themselves. Like, make a few, like, like, misogynistic commercials that are, like comedy-based commercials, or, like, make some stereotypes
Brandon,
and make it funny.
That is not enough, Brandon.
It's also
That'd be a viral thing.
Antithetical to the entire Democrat brand, which is we're the progressive party that stands up to misogyny. And like Amy said earlier, that has always meant just punching men, white men specifically. Remember during the 2024 election, they had the white dudes for Harris thing.
Yeah, which is such a fake thing.
They got every lispy, quasi-effeminate male celebrity they could find, and Jeff Bridges, which really sucked. But they got them all together like, yeah, we're white and we love Harris. And it was a very unique thing that I commented on at the time, because it was the only time I've ever seen any major political party in the United States acknowledge white men as a voting category.
Well, that tells you right there, though. That's who they're trying to get.
But it comes across as so inauthentic.
Yeah.
Did a single white man who was going to vote for Trump switch to Harris because they saw, Josh Gad and James Franco and Jeff Bridges telling them to vote for Kamala Harris?
And you know what it shows is how much they
did.
contrived the polling data as well, because they clearly would never have launched that initiative unless their internal polling showed that she was massively behind. You had everything, and I did polling. You guys remember I did the decision with Tom. Every headline was, oh, Democrats crushing it, Democrats in the lead,
But those were lies. They admitted they were lies.
I know.
They admitted that the internal polling was way different than the external. Like, Connor, this is what's going on, all right? Because the left has many faces and many, you have Marxists that they believe in the class struggle, all right? That is manly. Even though I absolutely disagree and I will dedicate my life to fight against communism, it's still a manly struggle, Connor, all right? Back in the 60s and 70s, you had the hardworking union guy that he will wake up.
Hardworking is a stretch.
No, but he will wake up at 5 a.m. to provide for his family, and he was built like a brick house and sweaty and, just putting things together. And then that is not the core. Like, you don't have a Marxist, manly core. And men in general, they're more politically active. They're more politically awake in the decision-taking. And the core that it shifted to like a postmodern, deconstructed core that it's an entitled core, all right? Foreigners, women, LGBT plus.
But the party's been infiltrated, though. This isn't the real Democrat Party. It was infiltrated by like the rules for radicals thing. Like they identified the Democrat Party as like a weaker, more susceptible thing to like this like radical influence that they were going with. Like they made it something that's totally not, and that's why everything seems like it's on the right now because of how far left.
Then
why everyone's leaving, right?
Yeah, but what is the Democrat Party supposed to be then?
For the workers.
Yeah, what is it that they represent? And let me ask you guys a question as well on that note, because we've seen so many people who are on the left now disavow because they say it doesn't reflect anything of what their values were. Would you guys follow that same line if the Republican Party became unrecognizable to you and the values that we hold dear, would you switch parties? Like, are you loyal to a party or are you loyal to the principles?
I'm only a Republican so I could run for Congress. I checked Republican for the first time ever when I got my license earlier this year. Before that, I was always independent because I think there's stupid things on both sides, or Democrats and Republicans. So I don't consider myself a Republican. But yeah, in this world today, I'm more Republican. But Democrats, like, you know, in the 60s, they weren't that crazy. They like I'd probably be more Democrat than Republican in the 60s.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm radically further right than the average Republican politician.
That's true. Yeah,
so I
you
typically
are.
vote Republican because I vote for the most viable, furthest right candidate. But I don't even consider my Republican to be my primary political designation. I use other terms like Christian nationalist, Western cultural
sounds
chauvinist.
intense.
Yeah, like
Western
I am much further right than
Yeah.
your average Republican congressman.
Yeah.
So if the Republican Party walked away from every value, they've already done that. They've been doing it for my entire lifetime.
Yeah.
They don't uphold their own principles anymore. And even those principles are not nearly as far as I'd like them to go.
Yeah.
So I could change my voter registration to independent if I really felt like making a point. But the problem is that in the state of Florida, independents can't vote in primaries. So
Yeah, it's like that in most states.
yeah, that's why most people choose one of the two major party designations so that you actually have a say in the run-up to the general election.
Right.
But yeah, that's why identifying as one party or the other as your primary designator doesn't make much sense.
Because like they used to be against war, right?
Yeah.
And then during this last election, they had like Liz Cheney endorsing her, who was formerly Republican, right? So like the perspective on that issue specifically really switched up.
I mean, that's not the reality. If you look at the Afghanistan war and you look at the Iraq war, the biggest drivers of war, George Bush.
Yeah, he's a Republican.
Yeah, he's a Republican. So it's not like that's Trump that is against war, and Trump is not a
No, but
common
Republicans have been the war party most
yeah,
of the
they've
time.
been the
right. And so that's probably another reason why so many Democrats probably flocked over
Here's
to
the
the
thing.
Republican Party.
Democrats have only ever been against going to war with communists. If you look at every
What? Really?
every war the Democrat Party, the left protested was when the United States was at war with a communist-backed power. They like to define themselves as, you know, we're the party of peace because they haven't mentally moved on since the 1960s when all these people were, you know, spitting on people coming back from Vietnam and Korea and, you know, calling for the end of that because we were at war with communists.
Right.
But then as the Cold War ended and we shifted into war with other world powers, suddenly they're on board with it. Not to quite the degree of Republicans, but you could say the Republicans.
So when did they start being on board with it, you're saying? Because I think of it as Ukraine, pretty much. Like, when were they on board with war before Ukraine?
What do you mean?
Democrats. You're saying the Democrats were on...
No, the people they are on board with interventions in the Middle East, overthrowing Libya. These are
Not
things
the people, though. That's more like the politicians.
No, that's what I'm talking about. I don't mean the on the ground average voter.
yeah, no,
I'm talking about the
college voter
politicians.
has no idea.
Republicans are pro-war because they're all bought and sold by defense contractors. Democrats want to make war against any country that they believe doesn't uphold democratic values.
I don't think that's the real reason. I think they're in bed with defense contractors, too.
Of course they are, but like I'm talking about the
narrative?
the narratives they put forward. Republicans are at least like, yeah, let's just go kill people for the heck of it. Democrats are like, no, we must topple this foreign dictator because he suppresses women's rights.
Right.
So
So
question,
we're going to back the insurgent group to take over a country.
question is, so how do you think the strategy session's going for them where they're like devising the ways to spend the $20 million to make men like them? 'Cause
Horribly.
Right.
I would like pay a good amount of money
Yeah.
to like just like sit there in the background, like listen to them like
Fly on the
trying to-
wall.
like,
Okay, so what values do we actually believe in?
just not-
How can we spin this?
we're not masculine enough, you know? How do we be more masculine?
Well,
That's-
even the
it's
New
really-
York Times has to address that, but like it's not working. They're holed up in luxury hotels trying to talk about how to connect with the average man, and they're not writing political strategies. They're writing anthropological studies of like we have to review this isolated group, the mysterious white man. Let's do a documentary. What is he like?
Like he mows the lawn in the morning.
He seems to like it when we talk about video games. If only Tim Walz had played Fortnite, perhaps we could have won that.
Yeah,
that
That's a
No,
mistake
category.
right off the bat too, because like what they're targeting like 14 through 25.
That's a really good point. Like I'm sure, and I've done this exercise. I asked people why they voted for Trump, and every single person I ask, they have a concrete, straight up, they have
Policy, something.
Yeah, they have a reason. They're like, oh, I was tired of the border. I was tired of the economy. I was tired of this, tired of that, tired of that. Like they have a reason that directly affects their lives to have that opinion.
Yes.
Now, if you ask most Democrats that did not vote for Trump and voted for Kamala, they will be like, oh, he wasn't Trump.
Yeah.
And you can build...
They'd say protecting women's health rights.
Yeah, and you can't build a party based on what you're not, you know?
Yeah.
It's why Canada doesn't work as a country. Their whole identity is just not
Not
America.
America, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when you look back at the last election, there was two things really that they were going for. It was women's reproductive rights, and it was the end of democracy, that there would never be another election again. And I said this on my show last week. That is so ironic considering the fact that they literally chose to forego their entire democratic process by getting in somebody who was actually elected. But with those two being the primary things to focus on, I don't see how men fit into that or how they could target that specifically to men, you know? So they're going to have to find a whole other issue entirely to really hop on, in my opinion.
Speak to their pain points, though. Like you were saying, like they can't afford housing, they can't afford food, they can't afford college. So, like, speak to that and, you know, like make them feel like you understand the situation. I mean,
What about them being emasculated completely as well and told that they should almost be ashamed of their masculinity? Like, that is the cultural programming that came through the Democratic media as well.
But the thing is, Brandon, that's a good point. But once you blur the line of us and them, because they're not longer promising.
Them or them? Were you doing a play on words there?
No, us and them, like them, and,
like the Dems.
You know, not
them.
them.
I know.
Like they thems. Like if they blurred the line between who's an American and who's not an American. So when they start promising that they used to do this all the time, like we're gonna bring jobs to this, we're gonna bring housing and a hospital and this. But once that line is blurred, like you don't know who you're promising, because that's how they used to win every time, promising free shit. That's what Democrats do. They promise free shit. And now that the target audience of Americans who vote is not defined anymore by them, like it's just they're in a pickle. And I'm going to make a prediction that is very sad. I think the only way they're going to stop the Republicans from winning, because they're winning a lot, is by the Republicans making a mistake. So,
Which is what happens literally every single time.
Yeah.
Like they constantly screw up and give the Democrats a perfect opening because the Republicans are always lagging 10 to 12 years behind the Democrats, are now starting to run on the identity politics, representation, and diversity narrative.
Like, how'd that twerp write a book before somebody that was a conservative?
Exactly.
What's his name? Jake
Tapper.
Yeah. How's he the one who wrote a book about Biden's decay?
Well, I mean, that's just the media cover of legitimacy where, oh, well, I'm a
But it's like what you're saying, though. Like they don't
press.
seize the moment. Like they don't seize the moment with narratives and media and strategy and all that.
But
Republicans don't?
No.
Yeah,
Mitt Romney lost the election
See, and use Facebook.
because of that debate where he didn't go after Obama on Benghazi, and then he didn't adopt social media the way Obama did, and like they constantly screw up and let Democrats take over.
They gotta ditch the super delegates, though. Like I guarantee you, a normal person could win the Democrat Party if they got rid of the super delegates, because that's who got rid of Bernie. That's who puts super delegates. So you have to get that's who voted Kamala in to be
super delegate.
Yeah.
That's
So,
like, okay.
so Brandon can help explain this, but the way
unelected committee of people.
Yeah,
that,
the way the Republican Party works
say
is
yes or no.
you win certain delegates in a state. The delegates then cast their vote for you, and that's how you win the primaries.
Okay.
The super delegates in the DNC are unelected people who, like, the delegates have to then hand the votes over to.
Got
Those
you.
people then must be won over to pick, and that final step is how they cheated Bernie twice.
Yeah,
Man,
so you
poor
go
Bernie.
win the popular vote in in the primary race, but then the super delegates can make you not win it.
Wow. And this
Yeah.
is like a known thing?
Yeah.
Or is
Yeah,
this...
no,
Okay.
this is like openly how they run it. It's-
Wow.
That's the only reason Trump ran as a Republican.
Who are some of the super delegates?
Nobody knows.
Really?
You can't identify
Are you
them.
for real?
Yeah,
And this
serious.
is just a known thing, and they're
Yeah.
allowed
Yeah.
to completely
No, like
do that.
they report on it
Yep.
like on CNN. You watch the super delegate count go up for Democratic primaries.
But
which
isn't
is
this
nuts.
literally like interfering with the democratic process?
It's interference with democracy. Yes.
Yes, one
Yeah.
might assume, but
That's
Democrats
kind of
have
wild. I actually didn't know about this.
Dems have
Yeah.
never shied away from
Connor,
interfering with that.
last point on this, I don't get me wrong, and this might be unpopular, but I will be thrilled to see if they can solve this problem. Like if they do the thinking and they can figure something out. From I'm interested in politics and communication and like campaigns. I think if something comes out of this, Like, I think it'd be very interesting.
How about this? Just stop attacking your own people for one thing, and get a little bit more mild on your positions. Then, people who are lifelong Democrats would be a little bit more comfortable saying they're Democrats, and then people like Stephen A. Smith could actually, like try to run for something, and you get some more popularity around the party. But like, instead they come out and just shit all over Stephen A. Smith. I don't know what good that does.
It seems to me that the only solution going forward is to make Joe Biden an unlockable skin in Call of Duty. But speaking of men who are always in the pocket of Democrats, even when they are being dumped all over, David Hogg, the gun control activist turned DNC vice chair, who, ironically, is currently in the process of being ousted from his new position simply for being a man.
By the DNC,
By
right?
the DNC,
Yeah.
where they said his election was illegitimate because it violated gender diversity quotas that they have for their leadership.
Case in point, he's such a loser. Like he's such a shell of what Charlie Kirk is. He's trying to be the Democrat Charlie Kirk, but he's like the only thing they have to show for themselves. That's like a young guy who's advocating for Democrats, and they're trying to get rid of him.
He will never
perfect
be
point of
Charlie
what we're
Kirk.
saying.
Turns out when your entire career is based on standing on the corpses of 17 of your classmates to get yourself into Harvard, you don't have much else to offer beyond that. But even as they are dunking all over this guy, they are trying to strip him of his job, remove his access, and basically just cut him off at the knees for the crime of being a man. He can't see clear enough to endorse anybody other than the same people doing it to him. Here's David Hogg on the Breakfast Club the other day talking about who should really be the next leader of the Democratic Party.
Oh boy,
Jasmine Crockett, I love her. She is amazing.
Yeah.
I think that people want to see somebody who fights and calls out the bullshit, ultimately. I think that's what Jasmine does, and we need a hell of a lot more people that are out there that are willing to do just that and call people out on their BS and not say, oh my God, Republicans are going to criticize me for saying this. Screw that. They're going to criticize you no matter what. So what we should be asking ourselves is, what are we really fighting for? Because we know it matters, and I think Jasmine is frankly the type of leader that we're really looking to support in some senses, right? Somebody who is out there that frankly doesn't give a damn what the other side, at least the elected Republicans in Congress say what they believe in. And at least even if you don't agree with her, you know what she stands for.
Yeah.
Because she makes it very clear. And people are really craving that right now. They don't want more politicians that say talking points that it doesn't even feel like they believe, or you don't even really know what they mean. They want somebody who's out there that says what they believe and doesn't care what somebody else thinks about it.
All right. So speaking of calling out bullshit and saying what, not saying what other people care about, what about her fake ass ghetto accent? Where
I was going to say, I don't know what Jasmine Crockett is saying, not because she's not stating her positions clearly, because I just can't understand what the hell she's saying.
Like, you look at videos from a couple of years ago, she speaks very eloquently, dressed different. She was like a nice Ivy League girl, and now she's like, I don't know this bullshit. Blah blah blah. What's up? What happened with the ghetto voice, Jasmine? Why are you pretending to be ghetto?
I can answer that question. Actually,
I know it's a rhetorical question, but it's kind of racist.
Wait, what is the answer? Is it to sound more relatable?
No, it's crazy that it is not that Jasmine Crockett is a piece of dim-witted ghetto trash.
No, she's smart.
But rather that our political system exists in a place where it is more advantageous for a person to pretend to be that than to come across as someone highly educated, which she is.
They think that
she went to some of the most expensive private schools in her state.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very well-educated woman who talks and communicates clearly. Like, I'll give her that. She was a clear communicator.
Yeah.
But
and now she's intentionally putting
because
it
made more sense for her to sound like an idiot.
And angry and
exactly.
Right. Like,
That-
relatable.
Is that true?
Yeah,
Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't see the video of her?
I would love to hear like a
No, it
side
isn't.
by
Is
side,
it
like
tapes
before and
of her,
after.
like-
Yeah, there's tapes of her speaking very calmly, very eloquently.
Remember when she called
dressed nice.
when she called Greg Abbott Governor Hot Wheels? We did a whole segment on it a couple months ago. If you're interested, go back and watch that.
I
All you
remember
guys at
that.
home too. We do that side by side comparison of like, here is her talking when she was, a low level public official. Here is her talking in Congress. Completely different.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
super racist though, because I mean, you say more relatable, but like, who says it's more relatable? Why do you assume that like black people want to hear you be ghetto and
Well,
want
she
to hear
keeps
you be
winning,
loud?
so I mean,
What do you mean keeps winning though? She's only been in for like
maybe
2
they
years.
did maybe they did a BAM.
A what?
A BAM.
What's a BAM?
If the
like-
guy wants is Sam, maybe they did a BAM. I don't know.
I don't know what you're saying.
well,
Sam is the acronym of speaking to American
Speaking-
men or whatever.
yeah.
Or
So what? Speaking to American
Black
blacks.
people?
I don't think the
Black-
acronym works.
Sabs.
Bam.
Sabs. I don't know. But
They probably did a study on it. Like these people do studies on everything.
yeah, I mean,
Getting
that's
a lot of them wrong though.
Democrats make a lot of dumb decisions, but they are not stupid people all across the board. So clearly, if you're David Hogg, there's no helping you.
She's clearly better than David Hogg.
Yes. Jasmine Crockett probably has a
miles better.
a pretty decent future in the
Because this
Democratic
guy can't
Party.
even talk good.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you see him.
Yeah, he's like whispering.
yeah,
I'm
he's
not a fan.
Not a fan at all.
Yeah.
You'll never be Charlie Kirk.
Oh, well.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think that like this guy's a perfect example of what we were just talking about, though. Because I mean, like he's seen as somebody who's like a leader in the party, and why are they coming down on him?
No, he has nothing to offer, but he could if they would just support him. But they won't because he doesn't have the right representative statistics. But anyway, clearly it's a sad state of affairs for men in the Democratic Party. Moving on. I don't have my cards to do the slap like Vinny does. But moving on, speaking of victories for the fellas, if anybody was looking for a reason to move to the state of Minnesota, let's turn our attention there, where last week, in addition to commemorating the 5-year anniversary of the overdose death of George Floyd, the Minnesota Supreme Court also passed a ruling that women can legally bare their breasts in public. So,
Nice.
if all you degenerates out there wanted a new place to relocate, Minnesota might be the place for you, although I'm sure the large Muslim population would have an issue with that.
Humberto, you moving?
No, I'm not moving. I might be going.
You jealous?
There. Just
Are you jealous of Minnesota?
What?
Hey.
Am I jealous
Yeah.
of Minnesota? There was nothing
No.
to show, buddy. There's nothing to show. But Humberto was just saying this morning how much he loves boobs. It's like, well, there you go.
this is
Move
the
to
right
Minnesota.
the right to bare boobs.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like this at all.
Oh,
Like,
boy.
Let's go over some of the
Prude.
over some of the details of this case, and then I'll let you guys make up your minds.
Okay.
So this case centers around Eloisa Ruby Plancarte, who was arrested and cited with a misdemeanor in 2021 after she was observed in Rochester walking around a gas station parking lot with her breasts exposed. This was the 3rd time she had been arrested for doing this. The arresting officer also found a vial of cocaine in her purse. Her contention was that she did not violate laws against public nudity because it was not a lewd activity. Where she was she was saying that in order for an action to be lewd, there needs to be sexual behavior involved. All she was doing was taking her shirt off. There's nothing sexual about that, she tried to say. The Minnesota Supreme Court agreed with her, though multiple lower courts did not. In a majority opinion, the justices found that the law's use of the term lewdly required evidence of sexual conduct, which was absent in this case. To quote from one of the justices on the court, interpreting private parts to include female and not male breasts would lead to the continued stigmatization of female breasts as inherently sexual and reinforce the sexual objectification of women. As other courts have recognized, the idea that female breasts are primarily sexual is rooted in stereotypes.
Now, where's the line,
Let's
though?
discuss.
Like, what if she did a little shimmy? Is it sexual at that point?
Yeah.
Because
don't
maybe
look at
just-
me.
Look,
I'm not the one to make that determination.
It's a
when
great,
does it become sexual?
exactly. It's a great
all right,
point, Brandon.
This is the beginning of the end.
Oh,
right?
boy.
Let me black pill a little bit here. All right. Back in the 1900s. All right. If a lady like Amy right now exposed her ankles.
Yeah.
All right. It would have been a riot.
Well, she actually has her ankles covered by the
Yep.
socks.
Sorry,
so-
chat.
Sorry,
No
chat.
toes today. Sorry.
But-
Lots of
You
kneecaps,
tease.
though.
Lots of kneecaps.
Let me tell you something. Like, if a lady exposed her ankles, like people in World War I, they would get ankle pictures.
They call her a
and-
floozy.
a floozy,
Yeah.
right? So I love boobs too much to turn them into ankles or elbows. So I don't know. I think we should reverse this and keep them covered. Plus, I was
It is dangerous.
what?
Like, because remember the Seinfeld episode where Kramer like rams into somebody because there's the girl walking down the street with her boobs bopping around because she wasn't wearing a bra. So I mean, like there's situations where like you're driving along all innocently and then like you get like whiplash from a head turning situation. So if somebody
No.
with some just giant knockers is walking around,
Jokes-
you're driving. That's a dangerous situation for somebody.
Jokes aside,
I'm being 100%
Until,
serious. Like,
until
that
it
sounds like a
becomes
joke.
commonplace, until you see it every day, and then, like
Oh,
Humberto's
that's-
saying, it
that's
stops
sad.
being a special thing.
they become
But
elbows.
it's look at
They become
anytime there's some radical feminist protest in France or anyone at a nude beach.
Oh, there was a
everybody
lady-
acknowledges whoever walks around with their top off. It's never anybody you'd want to see naked.
There was that
It's
trans.
exclusively ugly,
the White
heavy-set
House.
people.
Do you remember the trans activist at the White House? She is permanently is permanently banned from the White House for exposing his breast.
His breast.
Yes, his
breast.
implanted
Good, that was obscene.
breast.
But jokes aside, like maybe this is funny. I mean,
It's not even a joke.
no,
though.
it's not a joke. But this is a like very French law case.
No, I'll tell you what it is. It's third world behavior is what it is. Because if you look around the world, the place where women and men both walk around equally shirtless is like the plains of Africa and the deep jungles of the Amazon, where they haven't invented clothing yet.
Right.
When we reach a point of civilization where we are all equally civilized, we put clothes on. Like there's a base level of human decency that goes along with
And
this.
how much further can we go past that even? Because, I mean, when you think about even maybe just like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, like the idea of dressing in a promiscuous way was so looked down on, and now it's seen as empowerment. How much further can we get past the boobs? Are we talking about the
that's the
JJ next? Like,
that's the
are we
trick.
going full-blown nudity?
Yes,
like, what?
it's a victory for
It's gonna happen.
It's a victory for pervs everywhere because
Yeah.
okay, great. The feminists get what they want, where they can not wear shirts anytime they see fit, and the pervs get all the access to boobs.
That's such brainwashing, though, to convince them that like they're more empowered because they're
Yeah.
allowed to be naked when it's like totally devaluing them. Because I mean, what value does it add to you if you're just walking around with your knockers out?
And female
100%.
empowerment also came in the form of sleeping around, which somehow again
It's just like-
benefited degenerate dudes.
Yeah, it's easier to
Exactly.
manipulate women.
I swear
guess,
it's a
sadly.
psyop. It's a psyop
Yeah,
from
no,
men.
no,
This
no,
is,
no,
but this like
yeah.
the people who started the
there's-
feminist movement, aside from Kate Millay, was probably a man
Yep.
who was pushing a lot of these things to achieve a lot of these ends.
There's a-
These
there's
are
a-
so easy to
later.
manipulate.
there's a bigger lesson here that applies everywhere throughout the United States. The thing is modesty, all right? And modesty doesn't need a law. Like I was listening to this guy, he's a Christian thinker, and he was like, you shouldn't expose parts of yourself that you don't want people to comment on public, you know? So like the thing is, things have gone, like especially here in South Florida, it's gone too far. I went grocery shopping, and these girls they have this new leggings that they kind of pinch in the back, and they leave nothing to the imagination.
Yeah.
And it's just awkward. Like if you're there with your wife just trying to shop and you have all these women practically naked walking around at the grocery shop, like it's not good for anyone.
Try going to the
here.
gym.
Humberto-
Try going to the beach.
Humberto
It's-
doesn't
it's
like
everywhere.
yoga pants in general, but I completely agree with you. Those ones that like scrunch up the butt and there's like a line through the arse cheek, like the crack, they do that intentionally to make the butt look bigger and lifted. Like
It's a push-up bra for your
wild.
butt cheeks.
Awesome.
Exactly.
But let's say
out of
hypothetically
control.
we wanted a situation in where it's more fair and like yes, men can take their shirts off just about anywhere. We even did it on the last episode. Vinny took his shirt off. Kelly obviously did not. But if we're trying to balance those scales, it's just, hey, men, keep your shirts on more places, not women wear them fewer
Connor,
I think
places.
it's gonna be self-regulated though, because I mean, I don't think the government needs to be involved in like saying what the rules are with this, because you know some chicks are gonna do it, and it's gonna be like, oh yeah, whatever. But I don't think it's gonna be like a thing that just takes on like it's a massive trend. But the more you try to stop people from doing something, the more they want to do it. So
Yeah.
No,
like,
no, no.
The only
but
reason
Brandon,
what?
No, come on.
What?
Like there's children. all
That's what
right?
I was gonna say, the kids.
There's children out there. I think we need a
What, who were
minimum.
recently breastfed. Children get breastfed.
Yeah, but we need a minimum respect for children, married
Okay,
men.
how about this?
Why do you?
Should underage girls be able to take their shirts off in public?
100% no.
No.
Yeah. Okay, then why is age a factor there?
Dude,
if there's nothing
there's-
inherently sexual about the female breast, why is it wrong for underage girls to be shirtless? But
Nobody
okay
should be
for adult
shirtless.
women.
You
So
guys
what- so
remember
what's
the
the line
rating
with that,
system
then?
for movies? Like, I swear that has changed so much over the years, where before, even if there was something slightly sexual, it was an MA movie. Now you can have a full-blown sex scene and, like, it's just M. But nudity is one of the things that exists within the parameters of that rating system. And so, okay, it's not okay for movies, or there needs to be age restrictions when it comes to movies, but in real life, women can just walk around with their titties out, and any child who's in the way just needs to see that.
There's 3 points here. First of all, it's Western culture precedent. All right, all the way back to the Greeks, like the birth of Western civilization. All right, you had men with bare chest, whatever they were doing.
Spartans used to wrestle naked, but let's not.
That's on
Let's
them.
not go there.
And females will cover their breast. All right, because they bring life and they nurture kids, and it's a private part. That's the first consideration. And the second is like our salvation, our purity. All right, like the society right now is just bombarding men with sex everywhere. Like, you know, this is not natural. It's not good at all.
Yeah.
And I think they've actually done studies. Sorry, Connor. I know you're about to say something. On like what it literally does to a man's. I don't know if it's their dopamine receptors or whatever that spike as soon as they perceive a sexualized image, and that's why the saying goes, sex sells, because of the way it elicits certain reactions specifically in the male brain. That's why they use it for marketing.
And I'll let you guys in on some of the secret behind the scenes stuff we're doing here. When we were talking about the thumbnail for this episode, we're doing a lot of stuff about breasts and
failed.
OnlyFans. You saw there are no boobs in the thumbnail. You will not find pictures of breasts in the images we're going to show on screen for the rest of this. And we were talking about, we would get more clicks if we put, you know, some busty OnlyFans chick leaning over the camera. But we're trying to elevate the discussion a little bit more and not rely on boobs for clicks. And maybe that's why this episode will not get nearly as many as it could have. But on that note, talk about how men are bombarded and society at large is constantly inundated with sexual content. OnlyFans.
yeah.
It's the newcomer to the internet pornography scene, but it is already a multi-billion-dollar company. It's now apparently up for sale. We have this report from Reuters that OnlyFans owner Phoenix International Limited is in talks to sell the porn-driven company to an investor group at a valuation of around $8 billion. The group is led by Forest Road Company, a Los Angeles-based investment firm. So basically, Leonid Radvinsky, the very elusive, secretive tech billionaire from Ukraine who has been running webcam companies and different other online prostitution sites for the better part of 3 decades, and, you know, lives in Miami as all
Degenerates.
skeevy degenerates would, is looking to divest himself of this company. He's the sole, or one, like the main owner of the Phoenix International company, and he's trying to sell it off. $8 billion. This is up from the company had a valuation of just $375 million in the early 2020s when he bought it. As we all know, OnlyFans exploded during COVID. Radvinsky has taken home over $1 billion between 2018 and 2023, with many, many more dollars in his bank account as a result. And OnlyFans continues to take 20% of all the earnings of every person who creates on that platform. So, give me your thoughts. Like, is this even a sale that should be allowed? What should be done with OnlyFans? Like,
Shut it all down, baby.
I'm at a loss.
Shut it all down.
Shut it all down.
That would be my preference. I
Oh,
mean,
you guys love the government getting involved, huh?
Huh?
You guys just love the
well,
government
no,
getting involved.
here's
huh?
the thing. There's a difference between, like, okay, we could have the discussion about whether or not porn should exist. I personally think it's a cancer to society, but what we do need to discuss is like the illegal or like grossly degenerate things that happen on the platform and the level of grooming that is involved, plus the recruiting aspect. I mean, pyramid schemes are illegal when it comes to business structures. There's so many network marketing companies that were shut down as pyramid schemes, yet they're doing nothing about this OnlyFans situation where women are incentivized to flash their money, all the things that they got from being on OnlyFans, to recruit other girls so they can make a buck off what those girls make. That should be illegal. Shut at least that element, make that completely illegal. If they're able to do that for pyramid schemes, they should be able to do that for OnlyFans.
Let me go even higher. Like the thing that is taken away from all these women that are on the platform, usually very young, like they will never be a respectable woman that will be a mother once your privacy's out on the internet. And this guy, I just see his face and it makes me angry. Like, I don't want the government getting involved because, like, you know,
But
like
you do though.
no, because that's the only way now. But I think this guy should be put in death row, all right? Because what he took away from desperate women to build an empire and put another zero in his bank account is absolutely disgusting. This guy is a degenerate, and he's making the world a worse place with like tremendous human suffering.
What
all
I think is
right?
more disgusting, though, is the fact that so many people were in that desperate position in the first place, which is like a much deeper conversation than that. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's tough because some people have, like, you know, changed their lives because of that. You know, you give them economic opportunities. But I was saying last week that I think
talking
that
about Brandon.
because people like monetize.
So-
and
What
show
are you
their
talking? Are you
likeness.
talking about people like Sophie?
Sophie
do you
Ring
know-
has
do
a
you know
jet, yeah.
Less than
I know.
1% of all of OnlyFans makes even $2,500. They're sucking and fucking for less than $3,000. You could literally make more at McDonald's.
Yeah. No, I think that if porn and this got banned, I think that prostitution should be legal because then at least guys are like doing something physical rather than doing it on a screen. But like the fact of the matter is there's like a lot of dangerous, desperate dudes out there that are like kind of being what's the word? I guess like sedated or like kept like distracted with stuff like this because probably like 80% of dudes aren't having any sex at all. They're probably pissed about that. They're probably potentially dangerous in terms of like rape, assaults, like whatever. So like there's that element
hold
of
on.
it.
Are you making the argument that if there's no access to porn and legal prostitution, that dudes are just going to go out and rape?
I think that there is a risk of that. Yeah,
because I can argue the exact opposite. Because
it's a cultural contamination.
The more porn has become accessible, the more mainstream it has become, the more access people have to prostitution, the higher the rates of sexual violence. The more rape you see on a regular basis. Porn is directly making people commit acts of sexual violence in real life. It's an escalating thing. Like the thing with, video games create school shooters. That's actually not true. Porn creates rapists actually is. Like, that is verifiable with the statistics that show that the more people consume porn, the more likely they are to have some kind of sexual dysfunction, to say nothing of, intimacy issues with committed partners, erectile dysfunction for men. Women are traumatized by this because whether they're making it or involved in it or consuming it themselves, like this is a actual cancerous problem.
Yeah, porn is.
Yeah, Humberto's saying lled and Radvinsky should be locked up, and so should Solomon Friedman. The guy who owns,
should be locked up.
owns Ethical Capital Partners, that
Pornhub.
owns ALO Holdings, which is Pornhub, RedTube, YouPorn, and like 4 or 5 other ones.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I agree with you with porn. Though it's like bad psychological impacts and all that. But like, what do you imagine the process is like for like the 80% of dudes out there who like if they badly want to get laid? And
Where are you
like,
getting that statistic of 80% though?
Like studies show that 80% of dudes are sexually inactive right now.
No, isn't that that's
But
just
you're
guys.
you're categorizing that as a problem too.
There's an age demographic for that as well. That like 80% of men either haven't had sex in several years or they're a virgin. But that's not all men in general. There is an age demographic. I just
Was it
can't
like
think
18
of.
to 35 or
I can't
something?
think. Yeah, something like that. I honestly think just completely take away the pyramid scheme element. Take away the ability for women to be able to promote this because they are promoting it in a manner that basically says, if you do what I say and you follow what I do, you're going to have the exact same results. But the fact of the matter is it's not true. The women are promoting that so that they can align their own pockets. And the way that this has become so normalized in society, women are looking at their phones, they're seeing these beautiful, successful, sexy women and they want their lifestyle. But that lifestyle is unattainable. Most of them are never going to have it. And even if they do get it, your body is a depreciating asset. So unless you learn how to invest, you're going to be broke by 30, 40. And then how the heck are you going to go back into the workplace when you have zero skills on your resume to offer and no man is ever going to want to date you? Because every other man has seen you.
We met a lot of them, Amy. Remember, we used to do the other show, right? That we don't talk about. And I was intern producer for a little bit, and all these ladies that will come in after some of them, they will come in after doing OnlyFans for a long time. Yeah, and it's just sad, Brandon. It's very sad what they've been stripped from.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the banning advertising would be a good thing for sure. But I don't know. What do you guys think about the prostitution thing? So I'm with you that porn and OnlyFans probably not good for society. I can't think of a justifiable reason why they should be allowed. I think it's indecent and destructive to people and misleading and all that. But I don't know. I think
Brandon, you might be onto something. I don't think, to be clear, I don't think prostitution should be legalized. But if I had to pick evils, I'd rather have the kids keep a physical shape to the level that they can actually have sex. Not
clarified.
To keep in shape enough so they could have sex, not this 500-pound monsters that are behind the OnlyFans. And the other thing, it's a driver. That means that they have to go outside, they have to work. So I think, at least for the male side of things, because every time there's a hoe, there's a pimp. So
that's what I'm saying. Legalize it and regulate it so that it's I'm not totally against government stuff. I'm saying like you have like a government agency that's like where people are tested, like people are there, like security, safe,
But isn't
all
the
that.
most basic function of government to stop degenerate behavior? If it can't do that, then why do we have government? If we can't have a government that regulates like correct and incorrect behavior at a bare minimum,
Why is that degenerate behavior though?
Explain to me how soliciting a prostitute is not degenerate behavior, because you're the one who's up against several thousand years of human history that all says that's generally incorrect.
Wasn't that the first profession though?
They call it the oldest profession
Yeah.
because it's been around forever, but that doesn't mean it's correct.
Like, I don't know, guys. I feel right in the middle between the two positions.
You're warming up to this prostitute
No,
thing.
no, no. I'm not warming up to a prostitution thing. I right on principle, right on practice. All right. I think all these behaviors, because you can never ban anything from humans. All right. You can go to a
you just
max,
get nastier
no,
and
no. You
dirtier.
can go to a max security prison in the United States, and they will still get access to drugs. All right? So you can't ban humans from doing anything. Like, what I do agree with Connor is that this needs to be pushed back out to the fringes of society.
When something is illegal, you get less of it. When something is legal, you get more of it.
No, when something is illegal, you get a powerful criminal empire that sells it and makes
then-
himself rich
but
off
you
it.
have
It becomes a detriment to society.
You begin stopping, and I get you're trying to make the whole prohibition created the mafia
and,
thing.
and cartel because
Yeah.
of drugs. How powerful do you think cartel would be if cocaine was legal?
Exactly, but the reason the cartel got so powerful is because they have entire countries that are complicit in helping them. If you had governments that said we will not give safe harbor to cartels, there would be less of it. Like, look at how many people only consume marijuana because it's been tacitly legal.
Yeah.
Or now explicitly legal for decades.
Not decades.
The number one reason people don't do things is because it's illegal. The law against murder is the number one reason people don't commit murder. And maybe there's also the moral argument of, oh no, I would never take a human life. But if there was no
But
law
if it
against
was on the
murder,
table-
you would see drastically more murder. If it was not illegal to consume cocaine, you'd see a lot more cocaine. You disincentivize behavior by having actually enforceable laws. The reason prostitution and other things like it get away with existing in these fringe areas is because there's not this full-scale crackdown on it. Like,
But you know why that's not a
every
crime,
cop
though?
knows where the
What's the
red light
definition of a
district is.
crime? To have a crime, you have to have a victim. And who's the victim if there's one person who wants to make some money and one person who wants to get some sex, and they mutually agree, like, yeah, I'll give you this sex for this money.
Because
Boom, both
it's
people are
wrong
happy
to
at the end of it.
commoditize people, even if they're
opinion.
even if they're consenting to it.
Their opinion, there's not a victim there, and that's not a crime.
Yeah, but that's the opinion. But what?
What you're saying is the opinion.
Yeah, but what we're saying is
I mean, that's just
people can be victimized by things they consent to.
Dude, I mean,
there's an
freaking-
actual
that's just
standard.
interpreted them
No,
as a
but
victim,
Brandon-
though.
Are we about
Brandon-
to get into another abortion debate? Like,
No,
like,
bring
just
it on.
because
Bring it on.
just
No, no,
because
no,
they
but-
say that that's legal doesn't mean that the baby isn't a victim as well. Like, just because like the law has arbitrated that this thing is okay does not mean that it's actually okay.
No, but me being like pro-choice more than you, I would say, there is a victim there when the abortion's happening because the baby is a victim. But with this, there's two people who want to do something. Both are happy at the end of the transaction.
most women probably don't want to do that. They're doing it either because they have been socially conditioned, and then they're going to realize at the end of it how terrible it was. The amount of women that have high correlations with suicidality, extreme mental health issues have been involved in these industries. And plus, a lot of them get in those industries because they are sex trafficked. And in that case, there is a victim on the front. Either there's a victim on the front end or the back end of it. There is no way that this is victimless.
Exchanging sex for money is not a healthy, well-adjusted human behavior.
Yeah, but neither is for 80% of your population to be like in bankruptcy or be like at the poverty lines, and that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, but you keep talking about it as if allowing legal prostitution is the only economic ladder people have to escape poverty.
No, but it
And look,
creates an
that has
avenue.
often been the case. It has, but why not just create better avenues?
Well, we should, but this one, like when we're talking about the case of like the negative effect of porn and OnlyFans, like I agree with that. Like, there's nothing healthy about a dude from the time he's 18 to the time he's 30, just like sitting on his computer, and that's the only connection he has with sex. But if a dude like is unable to like go up to a girl and get a girl to have sex with them, then I think legalizing prostitution is a better alternative than for the guy sitting in front of his computer for 10 years.
Okay, but the thing that requires effort is not prostitution. Prostitution requires no effort whatsoever. It requires having money and walking up to a prostitute. It's not like you have to try to get a prostitute to go to bed with you. You're talking about hookup culture, and that's a whole separate argument. And you can be fine with there's no laws against, men picking up random women in a bar and having sex with them for free. Because that, I guess, requires effort and some kind of
Not a lot of
presentation.
dudes could do that, though.
Yeah, but you're discussing access to sex as like it's some kind of public utility. That, in order to keep sexual violence low, we have to make sure there's a ready supply of vaginas out there.
I
for
mean,
these guys to
sorry,
get
I think
with.
the vast majority of crazy people out there have been sexually frustrated.
Yeah.
Is that a crazy statement to make? Like, what's the name? The Unabomber was like constantly writing about how he like wanted to have sex with girls, but like didn't know what to say to them and all that. So yeah, I do think that guys who do crazy things are sexually frustrated a lot of the time.
Yeah,
but do you think the sexual frustration is the cause of the craziness, or are you just saying that it happens to be a symptom?
I don't think it's like the complete sole reason. Because I mean, I think that like a lot of dudes are sexually frustrated, but then like there's only a select few of them that end up snapping and trying to like send bombs in the mail or something, or shooting up a school or whatever. But I don't think it helps if you have absolutely zero access to sex and you're got some wires crossed the wrong way too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that
I hear what you're saying, but to Connor's point, I feel like the more that you allow something, encourage something, normalize something, the more you're going to see it in society. And I think we need to cater more to those people because that's the vast majority versus a fringe 0.01% of people who go out and murder or rape because they can't get their rocks off. Like that is going to be so exceedingly rare by comparison to all of the people who are hurt and affected by this like sex sells culture. It's awful. There's so many more victims of that than the opposite.
No, I'm with you. I think that like the advertising part of it's a big thing where like we get really cracked on the advertising aspect of it because it's like a whole different thing to say you can't promote something rather than you can't like offer a service. So I think that like porn should be like really hard to find. Like I almost think you should like have to pay like a membership to belong to something rather than just being on the internet.
Going to that and to Connor's point, sports betting. All right. Sports betting.
Oh yeah, you're all stiff with this.
I'm stiff because I think it's stupid.
Fun, please, here.
No, it's very stupid, and it makes for every dollar that you make, you spend $4. All right. Same argument. They should legalize it because this is underground and bookies and debt collectors. They legalized it. Now, a big population, I think it was 24% of American males engage on some sort of sport betting. And it's been a disaster, and it's really quick, Brandon.
Yeah, but it's fun. And you know what that is? There is victims there, sure. But you know what that is? That's survival of the fittest. There's some people who can't control themselves.
It's predatory how they do it.
I mean, it's predatory. It's fun.
Like, okay, let's say I'm in a group of friends. We're going to have a few brewskis and eat some wings.
Best days
of my life. And then there's 3 guys sitting on the couch betting, and they're like, come on, do it once, once.
If I do, or if I bet $20 on the Chiefs with Humberto, that's one thing. But then the fact that it's a very quick trip over to a bookie who's going to break your legs if you don't give him back the 30 grand you owe him on that same game, there's clearly a distinction there.
And that's why it's better that it's legal now, because back in the day when there were actually bookies, you didn't have to have the funds. You didn't have to have the funds
immediately.
But you didn't have to have the funds available back then. You could say like, yeah, I'll bet 30 grand on the Super Bowl. I'll put my house up as the collateral.
Brandon,
and then that's when you get your legs broken. Right now you're on an app where you have a deposit.
In 5 years, it's the most predatory industry that it has ever
risen. Predatory? You're acting like they're putting a gun to people's head to make them gamble.
Every single podcast, every single sports show.
What I'm saying again, don't advertise it. I'm with you on that. I don't think they should be able to advertise that. That we could agree on. But to say people can't gamble, gambling, if you have it under control, it's the funnest thing ever. Like throw $100 on a game when you're watching with your friends makes it greatly enhanced.
I mean, it's the same with all investing. Like all investing is risky, right? And you should never invest or gamble with money that you can't afford to lose. I think that should just be the rule across the board. But then obviously you're going to have people who lack the self-control and they're going to do it anyway.
That's why I think this is better because like in this one, you deposit your money on your account and then you get to bet the money you have deposited. Like back in the day, you could just say to your bookie, like, oh yeah, I'll bet $2 grand on it. I'm good for it. And then, you're not good for it.
Oh, right. And then they come and get you.
Yeah.
That's all about I have to contribute. I know nothing about sports betting, nothing. So
yeah, but if you're treating,
I'll teach you how to do it.
Yeah, sports betting and prostitution as the same thing. Brandon wants us to live in a society where you have an app that you can just order a hooker
anything
through.
Betting, prostitution.
X, the everything app, including hookers, blow, and sports betting.
Wow.
But speaking of sexually frustrated people sending bombs in the mail. Let's turn our attention to the FBI, where they have now reopened some investigations. You guys saw last week, Brandon, you were on with that one with us. You guys watching at home will remember. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino made it so the FBI did not have a good week in the eyes of MAGA. They came out and did an interview saying, we've looked at the documents and Jeffrey Epstein definitely killed himself, and disregard the deer in the headlights look on Dan Bongino's face. They're definitely telling the truth, guys. 100% trust us. Well, it's pretty clear the FBI needs a win right now. So in order to try to deliver that win, they have reopened 3 very important cases that have gone completely under the radar, were swept under the rug by the previous administration. Media won't talk about it, and everybody has almost completely forgotten. I think Amy didn't even know.
Yeah, I
one
had
of
to
these
ask about
took
a few
place.
of these. Yeah, I honestly had to. What is a pipe bomb? I
Yeah.
didn't even know. You guys literally just explained to me what a pipe bomb is.
Yeah, so
Not how to make one, what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I'm not
just to
going to
be
be clear.
the FBI has reopened the investigations into the guy who planted pipe bombs at the DNC headquarters and the RNC headquarters on January 6th, the White House cocaine, where that definitely did not belong to Hunter,
I knew about that one.
and the leak of the Supreme Court Dobbs decision draft that led to an assassination attempt on Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. So we have some of the details on these if you guys don't remember. So January 6th pipe bomber. The night of January 5th, 2021, an unknown individual wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, face mask, gloves, and black and gray Nike Air Max sneakers was seen placing bombs outside the RNC and DNC headquarters. These bombs were functional, but they were rigged up to kitchen timers with 60-minute time limits, which means there was never an intent to detonate them. Kamala Harris and her security detail were present at the DNC headquarters the morning of January 6th, which raises a lot of questions about why they never found these bombs during the security sweep. They were just like around the corner behind a trash can in bushes. They should have been able to find them if they were looking, but nobody did. And the vice president-elect was within feet of functional pipe bombs. That,
Wow.
Do you have the video?
I don't have the video.
She walks right by
She
it.
walks right past it. In fact, I believe, according to one of the videos, one of her Secret Service guys looks in the direction of the bomb and then just keeps walking.
Yeah.
Really?
Which raises, like I said, a lot of questions. The prevailing theory seems to be that the goal was to have these bombs discovered the morning of the riot to divert Capitol Police and other emergency responders to these 2 buildings, leaving Congress completely undefended, which, given how shorthanded the Capitol Police were, might actually have worked. But for some reason, they have never identified who this guy is. They have interviewed thousands of people. I think there's a $500,000 reward.
$500,000 reward. There wasn't
And nobody
What's
has
weird
come
is
forward.
that they were literally finding people who were there that day because of where their cell phone pinged, and they were going to a different state, track them down. They never saw the person on camera or anything, never had any eyewitnesses, but they were like, yeah, your cell phone pinged in D.C. that day, so we have to take you in to question you, but they couldn't find a guy who put a bomb there.
Yeah, what?
To say
That's
nothing of the fact that
crazy.
the pipe bombs were allegedly constructed using the exact methods they used to build training bombs at FBI training centers, where when they're training FBI agents how to deal with pipe bombs and homemade explosives, they make them according to these exact specifications,
I swear.
rigged up to kitchen timers.
They have a prop room somewhere where they get these totally intact passports that they used on 9/11 and on the New Year's Eve thing, and then stuff like this. Where they don't even put any effort into this. I mean, make it look like somebody built it in their kitchen at least. If
They
you're
do
gonna
have a
Could you
prop
guys
room.
explain for me and maybe anyone in the chat who does? So you said they were never intended to detonate. So what was the intention then behind that?
Clearly, according
show
to the
intention.
theory, it was meant to be these inactive pipe bombs are planted at the political headquarters of both major parties, so it's not even a partisan thing, so that somebody finds it, calls in a bomb threat on both buildings, then you get a bunch of cops who would otherwise respond to the riot to come secure these scenes, which, according to the prevailing media narrative, it was alt-right Proud Boy Trump supporters who were trying to distract from the riot. Equally likely was that it was, feds trying to make sure that their people planted in the crowds would have less opposition.
How funny is
Right.
that? Where they're like, we don't know who it is, but we suspect that it was a MAGA extremist.
Yeah,
but you
because you only hear about the DNC headquarters, and then maybe you hear Kamala Harris was close to it.
Right.
You don't hear about the fact that they were also planted at the RNC, which isn't really all that far away. I think they're
equal amount,
they're pretty close to each other.
an equal amount of bombs?
Yes. It was just a guy walked around for an hour just scattering pipe bombs. Bushes, trash can, behind a building, in an alley. Wow. And it's he wasn't hiding them.
Yeah.
And this, again, like you were saying, what was the point of having them? They're rigged up to kitchen timers, which means you can only set them for 60 minutes. 60 minutes.
And reliably.
were they on zero when they found them?
Yeah, they were never activated. So they could have gone off, but if they'd been planted to explode, they only could have been planted within an hour.
Right.
But they were not meant to go off. They were meant to be found. So there was no real bomb threat, which raises the question, what was it for?
Were they real bombs, though? Did they find that
They
out?
were. I believe they were operable. They just weren't meant
Never
to
switched
detonate.
on, never
They turned on.
activated.
People
Wow.
said that usually they have a primary timer that is a kitchen clock, and then that triggers a secondary timer that it makes the bomb go off. So they said they were rigged to not go off. But I don't know about this. Very weird. If anyone's been to DC, like there is cameras everywhere.
Really?
Especially
And-
next to Congress, yeah.
I've
every-
been, but I forget. I don't remember
every
seeing
single
cameras.
They're like-
post
And it's
corner
cameras you can't even see.
right.
Like it's one of the most surveilled
Surveillance
cities in the,
state.
yeah.
With
Damn.
good
With
reason.
good
It's the entire
reason,
United
you
States
know?
government in that
Yeah.
in that city. But it's very odd, and we're hoping, the Epstein thing kind of knocked some of the wind out of our sails on hope and trust in Kash Patel.
Yeah.
But maybe they can actually deliver some answers on this, and we can find out who was trying to cause this problem.
But that's like it's like they cheated on us and they're trying to bring home roses though. Like this isn't an equal thing. You have to do like 12 of these to even get close.
Yeah. Well, they're certainly doing 3 of them, because the next thing they've opened is the leak of the Supreme Court draft of the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, which, jog your memory on that one, on May 2nd, 2022, Politico obtained a draft majority opinion authored by Justice Samuel Alito in the case of Dobbs v. Jackson's Women Health Organization, indicating that the court intended to overturn Roe v. Wade. This is one of the most significant breaches in Supreme Court history.
Yeah, we still don't know who released it,
Yeah,
huh?
the document dropped via Politico over a month before the final decision came
Yeah.
out, which gave pro-choice activists enough time to begin rallying outside Supreme Court justices' houses, including one guy who drove across the country, loaded up a tactical vest with 2 Glocks, magazines, zip ties, a hatchet, pepper spray, and then he went and hid in the bushes out in front of Brett Kavanaugh's house. The only reason that the Supreme Court justice was not killed was because the guy had second thoughts and called the cops to turn himself in. Which, like, imagine what that phone call would have been like.
yeah,
Like I have reason to believe there's going to be an attempt on Brett Kavanaugh's life tonight. Well, how do you know? I'm in his bushes right now with a hatchet. Come get me, please. Like, nobody remembers this.
That's crazy.
But because of the leak of this document,
Yeah.
somebody tried to kill a member of the Supreme Court.
And why were they never interested in who leaked this? Like, was it Kataji Brown Jackson? Like, I mean, who else would have had access to it?
Yeah.
It's just the judges, right?
They investigated a bunch of staffers because, there would have been clerks in everyone's office that would have had access. But the theory, or at least the one I favor, is that it was one of the liberal justices that was behind the leak.
Yeah, probably.
Deliberately.
Yeah.
So, like, was Ketanji Brown Jackson in the Supreme
Yeah.
Court at that point?
I believe so,
by
yeah.
May 2022?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Oh wow.
But
There has never been an incident of a Supreme Justice being assassinated.
Oh wow, that
He
would have
w-
been the
he-
first.
He would have been the first. This is since it was 1789.
Wow.
That would have been the first.
What's
Wow.
their security like? Their
How
security's not that
crazy
good.
is that?
yeah, which is why it's crazy that Chuck Schumer
Well,
and
people
various
shouldn't be
others
trying to
were
murder them.
encouraging people to go protest at their
did.
houses.
Yeah.
They did, and that was very dangerous. Very dangerous. Like you don't touch the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Well, of course, they only like the court when it's stacked with justices who are going to do whatever
Do
they
their
want
bidding.
on the left.
Yeah.
And if you happen to have a conservative majority, quote unquote, because they're not diehard right wingers. It's
Yeah.
basically just Clarence Thomas and a bunch of
I love Clarence Thomas.
squishy
He's one of my favorite guys.
center right people.
God literally stacked the court. I mean, think about Obama in 8 years got to appoint 1 justice, and Trump got to appoint 3 in 4 years.
Yeah.
Like just totally coincidence because of who died when and who got sick when. So I mean, like
Just luck.
If,
and
if Ruth Bader Ginsburg had retired at a normal age and not insisted on clinging
Ripe
to
age of
authority for the rest of her
89.
life in the court, Obama could have appointed someone to her vacant seat as well, because
and
he didn't get to appoint Merrick Garland, and believe you me, the Democrats have never let us forget that.
And to Brandon's point, like this is an act of God.
Yeah.
Because we saw with our own eyes how bad things get when the court starts getting politicized and starts acting against the government. This is happening right now in Brazil. They have no chance of actually getting the democracy back. They
I
have
mean,
no
it's
chance.
happening
Except
here.
for
What are you talking about? It's
revolution.
literally happening here with Supreme Court judges refusing to act on some of Trump's orders. It's literally happening here as well.
Yeah, they're very politicized, but just like it's less obvious because they, I mean, like thank
they're
God
not-
they at least stopped the thing from taking him off the ballot, but
hey,
still.
Yeah.
all right, they ruled against him sometimes, but they're not actively going after him.
Right.
That's a whole different level. You know,
Yeah.
this happened in Romania. This happened in Brazil. It's currently happening in the EU. Like if you look at Germany, they're getting everyone from the AfD in jail. All right. So these are this could be an America ending. You know,
Like, are
incident.
you under the impression that the Supreme Court's inaction of trying to go after Donald Trump and other people is because Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor are, you know, content to sit on their hands and do nothing? You know, the court has to be divided on these subjects. You know, these are very much activist judges. Ketanji Brown Jackson, in particular,
Yeah.
is known for being a very hardcore activist judge who talks 3 times more than the other justices.
Oh, wow.
They actually have transcripts of like they keep a tally of which justice has said the most words
Right.
per session. She's always like thousands and thousands ahead of the other ones.
Oh,
Jeez.
imagine
But-
getting assigned to that one and
Yeah.
just being like, damn it.
And this is why when Democrats are like, "Oh, the conservative majority overturned Roe v. Wade. Let's pack the court. Let's
Yeah.
make it so Joe Biden can appoint 4 more justices to give us the majority again."
Mm-hmm.
The court was supposed to be nonpartisan, which is why you don't have Republican justices and Democrat justices. You have conservative and liberal because it's just an opinion on how to interpret the Constitution.
Gotcha.
But it's become so politicized. And they've expanded the court, what, 3 times?
In history,
yeah.
FDR did it.
Yeah.
Who else?
Let's follow in the footsteps of FDR.
Everything bad.
Everything bad traces
Yeah.
back to FDR.
Mm-hmm.
But this is why
His
they've
grandparents
weaponized the
sold
court.
opium.
Yeah. And now we have activist low-level circuit court justices who are able to say, that plane full of criminal migrants, yeah, we're going to need you to turn that around, bring them back, let them go.
Right.
You didn't follow the right procedure.
Well,
oh,
on that
I'm
note,
sorry.
could it have been a judge themselves
Yes.
who actually leaked
Th-
the
th- there's
thing?
Most likely.
That is
Like-
either a judge or a clerk on their
Right.
behalf is my opinion.
Because they wanted
on
to
it.
rally the rage,
Yeah,
right?
They gave the activist a month
Mm-hmm.
to rally and rage and make threats against the majority opinion.
I remember that time too. Like, I don't know about you guys. You probably don't hang out with many liberals at all. I did have some liberal friends a couple of years, and I remember
we
these were
know.
very
Friends.
uncomfortable dinner
Great
conversations around
friends.
that time. Oh my goodness, it was so uncomfortable.
Oh, were they nervous?
They were just so outraged and so pissed, and like, aren't you pissed? And I'm just like, at this point, I wasn't really that outspoken politically. I held my values. I mean, I've always been super against abortion. I feel so strongly on that, even when I was somewhat of a feminist, and not feminist in the typical sense, but just like a girl boss. Like, I made good money. I wanted to make good money, blah, blah, blah.
What's that
right?
tattoo saying?
Nothing. I don't have a tattoo. What are you talking about?
Right, of course. Never mind. But speaking of people who are agitated and very, very angry, Hunter Biden, you know, the known coke and crack addict who used to live in the White House periodically, definitely not responsible for the dime bag of cocaine found in a locker at the White House. This is the 3rd case that the FBI is now looking into. Remember that? Remember how they said, yeah, just like with these other 2 cases, we interviewed a couple thousand people. We reviewed hours and hours of security footage. There's no trace evidence. There's no fingerprints on the bag. No
is
hair
the lamest
samples nearby. It's a blatant cover-up.
This is
but-
the lamest one of them all, though. Like, it's very lame that they're trying to distract us from the Epstein stuff with these things. But like this thing, I care 0% about. I don't care if it was Hunter. Like, I wish Joe Biden would have done cocaine. I don't think it's that big of a deal. People in the White House do cocaine. Like, it might make them more productive unless they form an addiction. But yeah, like out of all the things you could be spending FBI resources on, like, don't care about this at all. I'm actually mad that they're investigating this one.
Well, Brandon, the thing is, and that's what you said at the beginning, they're trying to stack W's. All right. The L they got last.
You know what
week.
this is? Like, if you're trying to get some base hits, get some momentum going. This is like a bunt foul ball.
But hey, if you stack 12 W's, you know, you might be onto something.
I mean, what happens if they? I mean, Occam's razor, right? Probably Hunter. What happens if they prove that conclusively? What even happens?
He has,
in that
he has
instance?
immunity.
Yeah.
He has immunity from like treason, so he's not
So
going to.
they're-
And
they're
unfortunately,
literally wasting resources.
That's the one pardon that Biden showed up to sign in person and didn't use an auto pen for.
Yeah.
So it turns out all the things protecting himself and his family,
right.
they can't knock down. But maybe the
Wow.
other pardons might be able to be struck down, along
Right.
with a bunch of executive orders, potentially. But
That's awful.
the fact that they
still
Like if
lied
they
about
want, if they
this
want
for
a
so
list of
long-
things to go after to get wins, I'll give them a list of things to go after to get wins because there's like a laundry list of shit that we want to know more stuff about. But like this is the bottom of everybody's list. This isn't even on the radar. Like think about all the things that are still like uncovered, unspoken about, undetected that we could be going into. Like if we want to play this game, then like there's a whole ton of things that I would like them to look into.
Yeah.
This one, zero interest.
So like, okay, so fill in. Do some things on that list. We're going down like
9/11.
the FBI will not do Epstein. Let's say they just
Yep.
Pam Bondi and
Pedos
Cash
run the
Patel
world,
come
we
out
get
and
it.
say Epstein client list off the table. You're never seeing it.
Yep.
What things could they do that would balance the scale, in your opinion?
9/11. Declassify some stuff with that.
JFK files, like more.
Yeah.
Which they already
something
did, but, like, give
conclusive.
us-
No, but something
yeah.
conclusive, actually.
And there's still supposedly stuff they're withholding on that. The what's it called? The Mandalay Bay thing, the Las Vegas situation. You know,
Yeah.
we don't
Oh,
know-
yeah,
we don't know
Mandalay
shit
Bay.
about that.
Which there's not even an investigation into that going on. I
No.
don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's reopen that one.
It was the same weird sheriff too. That was the guy that was in charge of Hawaii during the Hawaii wildfires too.
Yeah, that's crazy.
biggest
And he
one-
was involved in one other weird thing as well, that guy.
I think Diddy. I think he was like Diddy's
Yeah,
fixer.
there was something
Wasn't
with
it?
Diddy, too.
My
Yeah.
biggest one would be the 2008 bank bailout.
Oh yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
It's not even investigated. Like it's like every American should be furious that they took your money to bail out bankers who pay themselves. All right, they paid themselves like millions and millions in bonuses the year they lost all the money. That should be investigated.
Yeah.
But that one I think is more unlikely to happen than Epstein.
Probably. And then how about
Probably.
the missing trillions that like we got college professors coming out
that's my
saying
number two.
we can't track the trillions, but it's like how about instead of looking for the cocaine dime bag where that came from, look into like what happened to like tens of trillions of dollars over
Maybe
the
they
last
spent
20
it on
years.
cocaine.
Yeah, imagine.
Who's to say? But regardless, these are all promises that they have been making for a very long time. They're kind of delivering on them, but like the big ones, like we just listed 3 things that are huge
Yeah.
compared to these 3 things that they opened, but nobody will touch them.
Yeah.
These are promises that either were not delivered or were upon arrival not what they were
The
cracked up to be.
2008 thing is so taboo that they haven't. I never heard any government official making a promise that they will look into it.
Really?
Never.
I need to look into this one. I don't know much about it, to be honest.
I have a video on it.
Yeah? On your channel?
Yeah.
Everyone
But,
go check out Brandon's channel. Watch
And whoever's running the chat for us, see if we can drop a link down there, maybe in the description of this video when we're done.
Thanks.
But
I think a lot of
speaking-
people don't understand it though. Just to like put a bow on that. Like I think a lot of people in Congress are easy to get manipulated by the bankers because the bankers just take a whole bunch of big scary number things to them and they just kind of bend over and give them what they want.
Yeah, of course. But speaking of promises that may or may not fall flat on arrival, let's turn our attention to the No Tax on Tips Act, which early last week passed the Senate unanimously. And this is what got my red flags going up a little bit. Because if anything passes the United States Senate with 100% approval, whether it's the No Tax on Tips Act, Marco Rubio's cabinet appointment, anything in between, I start to be a little bit concerned. So, what does the No Tax on Tips Act do? It was something that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both promised. Again, very concerning if
She
those,
copied
if those
him,
two
though.
are in agreement on something.
She copied him. She didn't have anything.
So, the legislation would create a tax deduction worth up to $25,000 for tips, limited to cash tips that workers report to employers for withholding purposes on payroll taxes. The tax break would also be restricted to employees who earn $160,000 or less in 2025, an amount that will rise with inflation in the coming years.
So cash only?
So no, it's cash, check, credit. It basically
Okay.
like reported as cash.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
my question is, why this and why now? Like
Yeah.
out of everything, because like the Senate version of this bill was put together, and it's gone to the House for approval, and they're now debating over whether they should include that as the no tax on tips provision in Trump's big, beautiful bill or pass it on its own.
Which seems to take some of the power out of Trump's big, beautiful bill. I mean, there's been a lot of contention over this bill, not only from Democrats, but also a lot of Republicans as well. There were 5 Republicans that actually voted against it when it initially went through the House. The things that people seem to be in, like, complete and total agreement on is making the 2017 tax cuts permanent. But then also all of these things that were a part of the mandate and the reason why Trump got elected was for the workers, for the economy, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. There's a lot of things inside the bill that people still don't like. So if you take out some of the most powerful aspects of that bill and you make it a standalone bill, aren't you taking some of the fighting power out of this thing when there's already so much contention around it?
But I'm going to be
I
honest.
like that, though. I like the direction of them making it a single issue thing. I mean, it is sketchy that they just zeroed in on this, and because I never hear of the Senate initiating a bill. You know, it's always the House, but and it's rare that they just like jump on something and make it an issue they want to vote on. But I think this is the way things should go. I think they should vote on single issue things, just like fire them off every day.
I'd be okay
agree.
with them all being like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, putting all of those 3 together.
Yeah,
You guys disagree?
three pages instead of 3,000 pages.
Yeah.
Which,
But
like, they would try to make it 3,000 pages even with just those
Which
issues.
is what the big beautiful bill literally looks like. It's
Exactly.
Probably,
Yeah,
probably
it's,
like
it's these
10,000.
omnibus bills that you need an advanced degree in legal speak in order to decipher.
Yeah.
And like
Now-
the people in Congress don't even know what's in it.
Yeah,
It's
they
like
get
the
like
lobbyists who
they
write
get 2
it.
hours to read the 18,000 page bill. But I'll be honest, and I might be in a minority on this. I think this is really dumb. I don't like the no tax on tips provision.
Huh?
It is not that I am pro-tax. I believe that not only is taxation theft, but the income tax should be illegal because it was a temporary measure put in place during wartime that was just left as a permanent standing
Right.
expense for everyone in the country. And it should be abolished. But this is not a step on the road to abolishing the federal income tax. This is, as always, the United States government using the tax code to pick winners and losers. And this is such a weird, obscure thing, such a niche little interest of, any restaurant or server or whoever else that works for tips now is tax exempt. Well, my question is, are tips income or are they not? Because if tips are income, they shouldn't be any more immune to federal income tax than any other income. And if they're not income and are therefore tax exempt, why am I paying it? Why, if I go to certain places, is a gratuity included in the bill? Because these things are treated like a standing part of your expense. You go to a restaurant and you're supposed to tip the server at least 20%. And regardless of how their service is.
Which is insane because nowadays they'll actually bring you out the check. They won't even tell you that gratuity is automatically included.
The gratuity is automatically included.
And then some of them have the audacity to say, yes, so the gratuity there, that's for the whole restaurant, but whatever you leave, that'll go to just me. It's like, dude, what? They try to guilt trip you with that whole thing?
So that's,
And they pay them like $4 an hour too.
That's treated like a standard expense. Like you have no say in whether you give a tip.
Yeah.
Either it's written into the bill or you are faced with social pressure of like you're screwing this poor guy out of an extra $5 because you won't leave it. Okay, well then why am I mandated to give you a gift that's not taxable? Like if it's a gift, why is it not an option for me? And if it's income, why is it tax free when every other bit of income? So if this passes, here is my plan. If this passes and no tax on tips becomes law of the land, the next day I am marching into Patrick's office and saying, Patrick, please reduce my salary to $1 a year, and if you like my service that I perform for the company, give me the rest of my salary as a tip. Because then I don't have to pay income tax, and what I am making on the single dollar, any tax I pay there, I'm well below the poverty line, so I get it all back. So
they said up to 25,000 though, right?
Yes.
So you take
parameters.
25,000 of your salary and say that that's a tip instead of income.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Right.
This is going to create an explosion of tipping. And tipping is already so out of hand that
It is out of hand.
I was just
It's getting worse.
I was just at a concert a few weeks ago, and it's like a small venue. It's not crazy busy or anything. The guy at the t-shirt counter, I'm like, hey, can I get the tour shirt in an extra large? He reaches into a box, pulls it out to me, or hands it to me. I look at him like, cool. He turns an iPad around for me to insert my credit card. And There's an option for a tip starting at
Oh, get outta
20%.
here.
Yeah.
It's like, bro,
Get
you
out- get
handed me
out.
a T-shirt.
I hit zero with pleasure on those things
Yeah.
when like they did nothing for
Oh,
the tip.
But they make the
1,000.
no tip like a tiny little thing
Right.
hidden in the corner.
I
Matter of
looked them
fact-
in the eye and hit 0.
Matter of fact, I picked this fight when once he rolled out tips at Subway. I was so mad. I couldn't believe it. Like, matter of fact, them being in that glass thing is in the way of me making a better sandwich. All right, so I should be tipped.
Yeah.
I should be tipped because you're half-assing that orange chicken on my sandwich. You know what I mean? I'm mixing restaurants. But back to this. Being serious. Let's break this down. All right. I just did the research, and we're talking about that tips in general, like the amount of tips a year, is very hard to tell, like, because they're very underreported. But it's on the ballpark of $50 to $60 billion. All right?
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, in the size of America, thinking that, you have some restaurants in New York that tips are $10,000, $20,000 is not much, all right? Then add the income tax to it. So taxable, you probably have in the ballpark between 15 and 20 billion. When we're spending how many trillions a year? Like, I think
Was it 7?
it's 7 trillion a year. Like, so if you put it on the grand scheme of things, like, it's a big win for Trump because there's nothing that he loves more than having promises made, promises kept. Then you need to look at Trump's background, all right? He comes from very tip-heavy industries, all right? So big on hotel,
Yeah.
all right? That's very tip-heavy. Big on restaurants, is very tip-heavy. Big on golf courses, is very tip-heavy. Big on casinos, is very tip-heavy. So he comes from being surrounded by a lot of tip-based individuals around,
Yeah.
all right? Then at the same time, like, since you can, sell your butt on OnlyFans, having to work, because working service, I don't know if any of you guys worked service before. It's tough. It's hard. Like,
I didn't lost a week, man. My first job at McDonald's, I lost a freaking week.
well,
Anyway,
maybe you weren't getting tipped enough, all right?
they don't tip in Australia.
Did you cry?
Did I cry?
Yeah.
No,
At
but
the
I
job?
literally seriously considered pretending to faint. I didn't. I didn't.
of just
To
saying I
get out of
quit.
the shift. It was so hot. It was literally like, I forget what it is in Celsius, but I was dying working fries. It sucks.
All right.
So, but imagine this though. Imagine if you're able to write off the tips as a company as a tax expense, because you're not able. Like, labor is the only thing you're not able to write off. That's why Trump hired contractors instead of actual employees, because you could write off what you pay a contractor, but you can't write off what you pay an employee. So imagine if you convert 25,000 of everybody's salary into a tip, and then could write that off. So like, that's super stimulating to the economy. I don't know if they're thinking about it in that way, but that just crossed my mind.
I actually brought it up to.
No, you didn't. When'd you bring that
huh?
up? What?
I brought up if we could switch the app that we have to being tips instead of being, like payments. That's a small one. That would be a great one. But
for both, though, it's good for the employee because they don't get taxed on it, and it's good for the company if they could write that off as an expense, like writing off a salary as an expense.
But I did the weave, and I want to go full back to Connor's point. All right? No, because this is a very important point. Like, this is not a stepping stone in the right direction. It could be, like, framed properly, like this stepping stone on tips. And coming up next, on the next season of, like, getting rid of an illegal tax, we're going to do overtime, all right? I would love this if it wasn't a roadmap towards freeing Americans from something that, from what I read and the friends I hang out with, is illegal.
Well, it's a war, though. It's like a football game or
But you
something.
know
Like,
what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
every time they put gun legislation in, that's a win for people who are against the Second Amendment. So, like, they were chopping away at us every year. It starts with a 3% tax on tea, and then like this and that, the World War I, and they incrementally increase the degree to which they have tax power over us. So, I think this would be I don't know what kind of hidden time bombs or weapons are in this thing, but I think like anything we get past like this is like a win and like a march towards like not having taxes anymore. So like we got to take the wins where we can get them.
Trump,
with this.
Trump said his the end goal is, and it's to eliminate income tax for anyone making less than $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
They've explicitly said that.
That's a small portion of income taxes too.
But that's also, again, they are picking winners and losers because.
Oh, so you're against that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Why?
I am 100% against any person paying income tax. The income tax should be abolished. And here's my
play that out, though. How do they-
quarterly reminder that tax fraud is only a crime because not enough of us commit it. If everybody just decided one year they weren't going to pay their taxes, not much the government can do about it. And congratulations, we the people have abolished the income tax. But what I'm saying is that they're saying, okay, people who file for taxes, if you make less than $150,000 a year, income tax free. All right, what if there's a household with a combined income of $250,000 a year? Each of the people in that household are making less than that, but if they file jointly, suddenly they're on the hook for income tax, even though each of their individual salaries is less than that.
So don't file jointly.
Yeah, but
that's a step in the right direction, though. That like if the end goal is to not have income taxes, getting that passed is a step in that direction. Like you can't, like, as badly as I want no income taxes, like we're in such a bad situation where we can't just snap our fingers and say like, okay, no more, because like if like everything would fall apart at this point if they did that. Like $7 trillion or $5 trillion of income tax, then $2 trillion of deficit spending. But yeah, so you got to kind of do it gradually.
yeah, and I'm all for the slow burn
But
if that's
you-
what it takes.
you
But they have
can't-
said cutting it off at $150,000. That's the end goal. Then what
For Trump, but then the next
in-
guy could go farther.
But what incentive is there to do beyond that? Because then it really is just you're giving tax cuts to the rich, which is the one thing nobody will.
Wait, isn't
step
it the
on.
opposite? Tax cuts to the rich, isn't it the opposite?
Yeah, they're increasing.
They're increasing
yeah,
it for the rich. But
no,
but what it
they'd
will
be-
do is it will disincentivize people who are maybe at like that 6-figure mark from really going forward and getting that next promotion. Imagine
Well-
being stuck in that intermediate where if you surpass that, then your total taxes would actually make it less. And if you just stayed at 100K or something, that would suck.
This is 100%. I have a friend. His dad is one of the most famous plastic surgeons back home, and he literally works until the cap, because there's like different levels of like income, you know, like there's different brackets.
Right.
He works until he reaches bracket 4 out of 5
And then stops.
and then stops.
Yeah.
And he's like, I used to work 12 months out of the year to like when I get to 5, 2 months of the, like 3 months out of the years, they go to the government. I never seen the government in my operating room. I never seen the government sweeping my floor. So from now on, I'm stopping at 4. I have the money invested that doesn't pay capital gains until you take it out. I put the money invested. I let that money work. That money doesn't pay taxes, and I stop working at month 9. Sometimes he works 8 months out of the year.
Right.
And this is so important to the soul of America. America is a country where you come from nothing and become a billionaire. All right. This entrepreneurial spirit in this country is like nothing I ever seen anywhere else. It's the only place you can actually become super successful. And once you cap that, America loses its edge.
I agree.
You know?
It doesn't incentivize the right behavior for people who are at that level, people who could break through that 6-figure income level onto like, you know, potentially employing hundreds of people as a millionaire, right?
And now to Brandolina's point.
Brandolina.
If it's this Yanga, you take that piece out, how much do you think it accounts for?
The taxes?
Yeah,
Of
the
what?
income tax, just income tax. On
income
the,
tax on anyone under 150.
No, income tax on the national federal balance.
Oh, of like the budget each year.
Yeah.
It's 4 out of 5 trillion.
All right, that's 49%.
No, it's 4 trillion out of the 5 trillion.
Yeah, that what they get back. So if you take income tax from the budget balance right now, like Brandon is right, the country would collapse.
Well, yeah, like think like military, medical spending, social security, like education. Yeah, like so like, you're gonna take a lot of jobs away and take a lot of stability away. Like even go down to like police departments and fire departments and all that. So you need a weaning off process and like a.
That's why Dodge was so important.
And it flopped. But
No, it didn't flop. They stabbed Elon in the back. And by the way, if you guys want to know about that, Dangerous Conversations is coming Saturday. That's my main feature story.
Let me know if you want to fight about.
Sorry
it
for the
sometime.
shameless plug.
If you want to
but-
fight about it, I can fight about it right
wanna
now.
fight about
Dude, poor
sometime.
Elon, man. They completely screwed that guy over. And speaking of this, and speaking of the omnibus bill and Trump's big, beautiful bill, like I would be okay with damn near everything in there if they were also to codify the Doge cuts at the same time and put through a rescission bill at the exact same time that they put through the big, beautiful bill, because then it would balance the budget. But they won't do that. 26 Republicans voted against it.
Tell me this though: why did he never, not once, not a single time, mention the Pentagon?
I mean,
Elon-
he's
They didn't mention it.
Elon repeatedly mentioned auditing the Pentagon.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
Did he audit it? Is what
No.
you're saying? I mean, he mentioned it, but did he? He was probably starting in the more obvious
They
places
talked
where the
fairly
weight.
extensively
Well,
about
he's a
auditing
defense-
the DoD.
He's a defense contractor, and he
found,
didn't do
he found so much waste, Brandon. They found they,
200 billion.
the goal was trillions of dollars. Granted,
He
they didn't
guaranteed a
quite make
trillion.
it to that. He guaranteed $1 trillion. Granted, they didn't quite make it to that, but they uncovered so much stuff, so many ridiculous things, but there's only so much they can do. Like, you can't drain the swamp when the swamp owns the pipe. And for example, some of the things Elon canceled them by 3 p.m. By 6 p.m., they're revived. They're back up again. That was completely outside of his control. I don't want to speak on this too much because it's going to give away the story that I have coming out on Saturday. But
Yeah, we could fight about it sometime.
we'll fight about it sometime.
Okay.
Brandon and I love to fight.
No,
Yeah.
but they
Just see us off camera.
they undermined it. They just didn't do what was promised.
Mm-hmm.
They did not deliver on the Doge cuts. Now we know fraud, waste, and abuse. And
Well, like half
I
of
guess
the-
it just stays there.
And now
Half of
nothing
Pentagon
happens.
spending is because of them overcharging us. That's the thing that Republicans and Democrats have said. And instead of looking into that, we increased the budget from 800 billion to $1 trillion. So
Yeah, and this-
I think that's not a great use of money.
It's one of the strongest criticisms of Trump from his first term, might be the one for his second. Trump, in his first term, was catastrophic for the budget. He blew out the national budget in the same way that Obama and Bush did before him.
Especially with the stimulus for COVID.
Yeah. And
That was
like
a
that
mistake.
was this back to the tax point. Yeah, I only qualified for one COVID stimulus check. And honestly, that was too much because I never missed a day of work. The second COVID broke out and they put the lockdown in place, everyone at my office went home. I was working online the next day and we were there for 2 years. I didn't miss a day of work. I got it who knows how many times, and that was the only time I was actually out. So I missed the first 2 rounds of stimulus, and then one morning I woke up and there was an extra $1,400 in my bank account because I qualified for one.
Wow.
I'm like, great, that $1,400 was nice.
You know,
It was nice to have that extra money. You know what would have been much, much nicer? The 15 grand I paid in taxes that same year.
True.
So if Trump had come out and been
Or
like,
how
hey,
about the inflation that
yeah,
you got after
in
that?
this time of national crisis, unprecedented global catastrophe on our hands, the federal income tax is hereby suspended until everything like that would have stimulated the
Right.
economy so much more.
Facts.
But instead, they're like, no, it's got to be even. So we're just going to distribute $1,400 checks to anybody we deem worthy.
See, I don't know because government spending is a big part of our GDP, so I don't know if that would stimulate it right away. If I was in there, I would say 10% flat tax across the board, and then just increase sales taxes right now for this phasing out process. Because like sales taxes isn't as insidious as income tax because you're making a choice to buy something.
What
But
do you want sales tax to be?
what is it right now? I was
So
just thinking.
it varies by state, but I think
Yeah.
it's like average 7-8%.
Wait,
Yeah,
does
so-
that just mean when you buy shit?
Yeah.
So like
That's why
okay.
the price
So
on the
jack it up
shelf
to,
is
like-
never actually what it
That's
costs.
so weird. So in Australia, they include they call it GST, goods and service tax, in the price that is displayed. That's
I think
something I
we're one of
really
the
had
only
to get used to
we're
when
one of
I
the only
moved
countries
here.
that doesn't do that.
Yeah,
No, and it's for a very good reason.
Tell me
Very
why.
good reason.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
The thing is, they just passed a law in Chile to do it this way. The thing is that people don't realize the way they're getting robbed by the government. So when you see something, okay, $5, you go to the cashier and your bill ends up being $6.
You know you got taxed $1.
You know
Yeah.
you got taxed $1,
Right.
right? So it's the most transparent thing that you can
It
have.
says
That
at the
makes
bottom.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know?
But watch that.
That's a really good point.
When you see how that compounds with like, well, there's $300 of groceries in my cart, and suddenly it's like just shy of $500.
Yeah.
Like there's all sorts of these hidden taxes.
But
and it's
what's a
very weird,
bigger
but-
number between your income and the amount you spend on groceries
No,
per
like
year?
the country should run off of import sales and property taxes.
100%.
And
And just like tax on goods and services, because
Yeah.
if you get like the velocity of money going fast and all that's taxed, then that's a lot of money for the government. And if you're not taxing people's income, then they have like at least the control over what they do with the money. Because like buying something is a
tax
choice.
on our labor is not the right way to go, because with how all of us work, I believe we're all on like W-2s for the most part. It's not a tax on us. We never see that money. I don't get gross pay in my bank account and then the money goes to the government.
Right.
The money comes from my employer,
And they
who
pay it
pays out of
automatically.
that and then gives me what's left as my paycheck.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
take-home pay is money that I never even see. So when I joke about like, oh, if we all committed tax, I don't even have the option of committing tax fraud. I need to get the HR department at Valuetainment on board with helping me commit tax fraud. And
I'm
that,
pushing, bro.
unfortunately, knowing our HR people, I mean, whether it's a good
Lovely
thing or
HR
bad
people.
thing, lovely people, the best.
There's good
they
people
would
both
not help me
sides.
commit tax fraud. And that's unfortunate because it's not even an option. My labor is taxed whether I consent to it or not.
Well, as
So-
a president of the Nothing Ever Happens chapter of Fort Lauderdale, nothing will ever happen. That's my take on it. You know, like I think there was good intentions, and I was really sad by Elon's tweet closing. You know,
I did my best.
Oh, it was so
yeah.
sad.
it is.
He's like, yeah, sigh. They're like, oh, you got backstabbed. Yeah, sigh. I tried my best.
What a murder.
It broke my heart, and the thing is,
Technocrat.
that's fine. But when he said that like radical efficiency and growth is the only way out of this,
Yeah, GDP growth, great. So Elon's new strategy will now be to import 1 billion Indians on H-1B visas.
Or
That'll fix all of
he
our
said
issues.
to create that his Tesla bots and like an army of bots that can contribute, not an army to fight, but to contribute. to
Not at first.
They'll be
Not at first, but he's saying that could massively like help to counteract some of the deficit at least within 3 to 5 years.
But the thing is, and I love what Connor said at the beginning, you know, stepping stones. Dumping the tea, you know, for the Tea Party, because of taxes, right? Dumping the tea is not a big deal. That didn't solve any problems, you know.
Symbolic.
It's symbolic. So I knew that this Dodge thing wasn't going to solve this and abolish all income taxes, but we kept the message after the Tea Party. We didn't keep this message, and we didn't make it into like a lighthouse where we're heading. You know what I mean? And I think that's really sad. I don't know.
Yeah.
But moving on, speaking of people who've gotten shafted in the Senate recently,
All
do you
right.
guys remember the story of Aiden Mays-Zerpowski, a.k.a. the Senate Twink?
I blocked it out.
Yeah, this was the day we woke up and saw that our news feed was full of gay porn being retweeted by
Yes.
conservatives for some reason. Truly a dark day. We're obviously not going to show you the video right now.
Good.
But for anybody who has forgotten, in December 2023, Aiden Mays-Zerpowski, Zeropsky, my apologies to the Senate Twink,
Nah.
a 24-year-old legislative aide to Democrat Maryland Senator Ben Cardin, filmed himself having sex with another man in a Senate hearing room. That video was then shared in a WhatsApp group chat before leaking to social media and being picked up by the Daily Caller.
Was he the one who shared it?
I believe it was the guy standing behind him who shared it. But this is why when you're boning in the Senate chamber, you don't text the video to people. The bare minimum, if you're gonna get it on in the halls of Congress, don't text people about it. But since then, it's been certainly an interesting intervening few years for this guy. He got fired, rightly. The government declined to press charges because he hadn't technically broken a law somehow. He spent a brief time in a psych ward as he emotionally spiraled out after losing his job. Then finally he went backpacking around the world and moved to Australia, where he now officially rebranded himself. His official Instagram handle is the Senate Twink.
No.
And he launched an OnlyFans page under that same name.
No.
So
no.
while this guy once insisted, please leave me alone, I just want to live privately, that is no longer the case. He is now clearly trying to capitalize on this. Case in point, he just did an interview via FaceTime with New York Magazine and produced one of the most insane things I have ever read, because he explained why he did it. And this actually leads us back to the Doge point we discussed in the previous segment, because he did all this because he was bored, because there was not enough government work for him to handle. So he decided he would fill time and some other things by going into the Senate room with his boyfriend, gave him a tour, and was back at his desk by noon doing nothing. To quote from the article,
Crazy.
listening to him recount his days getting paid by Congress to do nothing, quote, I would beg the chief of staff for work, I had nothing to do, is cause enough to wonder whether Elon Musk's blathering about government inefficiency is, on its face, well-founded. What is it they say about idle hands? To quote from him again, I would come in 9 hours a day, sit there bored out of my effing mind. So yeah, I'm going to entertain myself and F in a room.
Jeez. Imagine how much of a legend he would be, though, if he like hooked up with a hot girl in the Senate and got caught on camera
Yeah.
doing that. You know, like, it's a whole different thing if that happens.
I mean, I think it's still bad either way. But yeah, no,
totally different though.
You're right. This speaks volumes to what Elon's been saying. What the heck are these people doing? Like, he shouldn't even be able to get away with that because that room should be active. They should be doing things in there, not those types of things.
Oh, boy, like I have a special aside from the twinking. Like, and I told you this, Brandon.
I don't know where you're going.
No, not the twinking. The Senate staffers and Congress staffers are the worst kind of people.
Oh, yeah.
I said this 1,000 times. Every time a politician, when his rise to fame is, senator, Congress staffer, and to local politician,
Red flag,
and to congressperson, and to Senate, those are the worst kind of people. If your career starts as a staffer. Oof. You are the worst. And this is a cherry on top. Because this is what we saw this guy, and I feel partly guilty because we reported on it. We should have ignored this piece of news because he's now doing a business from being reported.
Well, apparently his OnlyFans is not doing very well, where he's in the situation most OnlyFans creators find themselves in, which is produces next to no income.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, this is staffer behavior. They're the worst. They're the worst kind of people. They're I don't know. I just don't like staffers. What do staffers even do?
Have you met one?
Nothing.
In real life, IRL.
They staff.
Have you met one?
Have you? I'm
sure
asking
there's a
you.
staff involved.
Have you met a staffer
No, but-
IRL?
No, I haven't. And I don't want to meet one. I never want to meet one.
Okay.
It's always this type of news with staffer. Have you ever heard like staffer saves dog and stops fire in a burning building? Never.
I haven't. No.
It's always like staffer steals money. Staffer does twink things on the Senate. The staffer does this.
Now, let me ask you something.
What?
Flip the script for a second. Say that's some different guy, like he's a bro, he's masculine and all that. Gets caught on camera. It's with say Lauren Boebert or something. Decides to run for Congress next year. You voting for him?
No, I don't encourage
Really?
it. I don't encourage
Okay.
his
I wouldn't
behavior.
Just seeing
encourage
it-
degeneracy.
I'm just thinking if it's across the board, equal
It is
equal
across
judgment.
the board. It is the
Wow,
Senate.
how noble of you.
No, but the Senate needs to be respected.
Of
Yep.
course.
All right?
Yeah, you don't want to
And
desecrate it.
You don't
Well,
want to desecrate
this
it.
might actually be a conversation worth having because as he continued in the interview, in some sense, I effed in the Senate because I was miserable and wanted a way out. And he talks about how he has no grudges and has no desire to suss out who leaked it, saying, I had a half second where I was like, I know so many people who have effed in the Senate. I could throw people under the bus to water out my own scandal. I feel guilty that the thought crossed my mind. Do you remember when Madison Cawthorn said, I know a lot about degenerate sex parties in the halls of Congress.
Yeah.
I've been invited to them. And then he got blacklisted, ousted from Congress, and we never heard anything about it again.
Yeah.
Really?
Wait, what do you mean you got blacklisted?
Well, there was all sorts of sexual allegations against him, and
Wow.
which the kid's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
It's a mighty bold of you to assume he's committing
Yikes.
acts of violence like that. I think it was before he was crippled, but he was trying to say, yeah, there's people doing stuff. The cocaine and sex all over Congress.
Oh, voting drunk. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
Was that the same guy you're talking about that said the senators vote drunk?
I believe
on bills?
so.
Yeah.
But
Well,
Yeah.
that's American tradition. Okay, don't hate on it.
So it's okay to get drunk before you're voting on legislation, but not blow off some steam.
Well, how do you think they used to do it in the 1900s? All right.
Yeah. So why are you being all stiff about it? If it was like banging a hot chick in
Stiff.
there. Yeah. No pun intended.
Nah, they was drinking and fist fights.
Well, firstly, sex is
Well,
for
yeah.
marriage, Brandon.
Right.
First and foremost. Okay.
And you're right. Women were definitely not allowed in there at that time.
that's probably I don't know.
well, I'm sure this is actually far from the gayest thing that's ever happened. Because, bear in mind we've had senators like Barack Obama
Yep.
and some of the other people of his ilk, but
Big Mike.
I agree that we expect a little bit of a higher behavioral standard for
Yes.
our elected leaders. And as in every government throughout all of history, there is always the seedy underbelly, the degenerate stuff they get away with behind closed doors. But polite society tries to be like, if you can't not do it, at least don't do it on the desk in the room where you're voting on things. This guy was on all fours on the desk that Amy Klobuchar had sat at just a few days before.
It was her desk.
Yeah. This was the room where James Comey testified about Trump-Russia collusion. And
probably-
Wow.
it was
probably
where
sniffed it.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was appointed to the Supreme Court, apparently.
But wait, you know the story better. No charges. Ever.
No charges.
No charges.
Walked away
'Cause,
scot-free, except he
what?
lost his
Nothing.
job. Nothing.
Nothing.
Because they couldn't find a single law that's been broken by...
I mean, is there?
There's decency laws.
Yeah, are there
Yeah.
decency laws about fucking in a workplace? Like
Hey,
you
Nate,
would
come
like
on.
to think.
What?
Jeez. We didn't say that
Making
the
love.
whole
Yeah.
show.
making love in an office.
not very-
Oh, there was
Not
there
very
was no-
ladylike of you.
There was no love going on in that video. Unfortunately, we can all attest to that.
Oh no.
brutality.
But yeah, apparently, and let's be honest, I'm sure they broke a bunch of laws, but because it was two flaming homosexuals, it would have been homophobic if they had charged them with anything. Because in many places in the country, there are still legitimately sodomy laws on the books that could be prosecuted if anyone was so inclined. They just don't, because society has moved past the point where that is a prosecutable offense. So I'm sure these two guys broke some kind of law, but it was like, you know what? Let's fire him and call it a day.
There's
It
12
was
states
sweeping
that still
under the
have
rug.
sodomy laws.
I wonder how they prove that, by the way.
What
in
states?
Florida.
Is Florida one?
Florida, Georgia, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Texas.
All
Wait,
the best
one of
ones.
those. Where was the
Interesting.
state where you can show your boobs?
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Is that on there?
No, it's not
okay,
on there.
of
No,
course.
they're
No,
the opposite
Minnesota
end.
is long gone.
Opposite
Okay.
end of the spectrum.
Like,
They encourage it, actually.
Law-wise, it's one of probably the worst states. It's probably the worst state in
Which
the
is
one?
kind of funny given
Which
that
one?
Minnesota has this
Minnesota.
like gigantic Muslim population as well.
Yeah.
Minnesota and Michigan are like overrun. So I mean, referencing back to our other segment on that, it's like you have a strong Muslim population against a population of modern women who just won the right to bare their breasts anytime they want. A lot of people are getting rocks thrown at them over there.
Yeah, wow.
but-
It's putting like two polar opposites against each other. That's interesting.
Yeah, the Sharia law versus feminists in the streets of Minneapolis.
I hope the feminists win, honestly,
well
against Muslims. Yeah.
I don't know, but back to Congress. It's crazy that there were no charges brought, but this is clearly a big.
Well, it was a
embarrassing
Democrat-controlled
black eye.
Congress
Yeah,
at the time.
Exactly.
So wait, that's a fact. No charges. No charges.
No charges.
No,
The
you
guy-
think Pelosi's been put something against him? That's why I always say Congress is the most powerful thing in the world. I mean, like if
It
they
was
want
the
to make
Senate.
it,
It was the Senate.
Congress is the Senate.
All right.
Like Congress is House and Senate. I'm saying, like the body of Congress, the House and Senate, most powerful thing in the world. If they wanted to make an example out of somebody, they could like put you away for life. If they want to not prosecute you, they could not prosecute you for anything.
It feels illegal though.
It does.
Like,
Because
doesn't-
it probably was.
It doesn't matter. They make
It has.
the law.
It
I
has
think
to-
the only way to test it is for one of you to go to Congress and have sex with a staffer, but for a Republican congressman.
I'll do it with a woman in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
listen.
I mean,
listen,
I'm going to run for
listen.
Congress in 4 years, and I don't know. I'll
Who
look
was
at the
it?
law book.
Bobert,
Yeah.
when she got fondled,
In
it
a
was
movie
an
theater.
outrage. It was an
It kind
outrage.
of went under the radar.
I think it was an outrage.
No,
Nah.
it was a blip
It
on the
depends
radar.
on who you ask. A lot of people watch the video just because it was.
I was.
And it's
out-
interesting that even the
but-
Democrats didn't make a big fuss about that, and that tells you that that's like some type of behavior they're afraid of getting caught doing. So like that's a pattern with them. They don't make a big thing out of things that they know they're guilty of too.
But they did make a bigger deal out of Lauren Boebert getting felt up in a movie theater than they did with this guy getting
Literally doing
slammed
it.
in the Senate hearing chamber, which it's really kind of funny. A woman getting felt up by a dude in a movie theater, that's a tale as old as time, even if it's inappropriate behavior for people in public, certainly conduct unbecoming of a member of the United States Congress. That's a thing that's happened forever. The dudes in the Senate chamber, that's a little bit more.
it's a new one.
That's a new thing.
Yeah.
You think they
But
don't want to
what-
come across as homophobic?
Yeah, so
maybe that's
the
why.
straight thing dominates the news cycle for a couple days. and
Right.
Black mark on Lauren Boebert forever.
Yeah.
This guy gets to go to Australia and escape any kind of scrutiny at all.
Right.
That's where they all go when they run away from something.
This is.
Apparently, prisoner penal colony,
Ah,
right?
penal. Get it? Ah, all right.
I don't like this at all, Connor.
What?
It feels unfair. It feels illegal. It feels cheap. It cheapens
What?
democracy. Like
What are you talking about?
that, the
That
guy
there was
is-
no charges
That,
against
yeah,
the
that
guy.
guy is sitting there with a
Yeah.
mankini, where Amy's from.
Hopefully not in my state. Hopefully not in my home state.
Well, we can maybe just hope we go to war with Australia and
They're an ally.
for now.
For now, yeah.
There was that whole nuclear submarine deal that caused a bunch of problems for a while. And
Yes.
It's basically trending towards being a failed socialist state. So maybe after we annex Canada, we can wrap around and take back the prisoner colony.
That would be crazy. It's on the other side of the world.
But moving on from the guy getting pounded in the Senate to Dr. Jordan B. Peterson getting pounded by atheists in a different but equally embarrassing sense.
Sad way.
Over the weekend, Dr. Jordan Peterson, an icon to many, a kind of revolutionary, almost prophetic figure to many men on the right, sat down with a group of 20 atheists for one of those Jubilee videos, you know, the Surrounded series where it's one guy versus a bunch of other people. And the clips that came out of this interview were very disappointing to a lot of the people who looked up to Peterson. He was represented as a Christian versus 20 atheists. After this interview, or I keep calling it an interview, after this debate, after this video went up, they changed the video title, so it's no longer Christian versus atheists, it's now Jordan Peterson versus atheists, because in the standout moment of the entire thing, Jordan Peterson declined to identify himself as a Christian. If you can roll that clip really quick, we'll see what he had to say.
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
how do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression
private.
I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
Absolutely brutal.
Wow.
And far be it from me to ever give, credit or victory to the atheist camp, because that kid is as smarmy as Reddit atheists come. Like, this is not some towering intellectual titan. But
sad, he's talented and smart. I mean, I wonder what went wrong in his life to make him feel that way. Because I think anybody who's is in that camp had something bad happen to them or has some pessimistic view of things. But yeah, that's weird. He's kind of fence sitting there. Kind of be all in or not in at all if you're going to that arena.
You know what? I give the kid props. I think he did a tremendous job. I hope he comes around to Jesus Christ. Most of these kids that question things and have their atheist phase, and then they come back to Christ, they really mean it when they come back. Some Christians, it's just inertia, and they're very valuable parts of the church. Mm-hmm. So I wish this kid the best. And he exposed something that I've been talking about this for years, and a year ago, when I brought this up, everyone was like, "Oh no, Humberto, you're crazy." But the thing is, Humberto never forgets.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't forgive. I don't forget.
Okay.
This guy was a liberal, all right, Canadian professor. All right, liberal Canadian professor. If I told you liberal Canadian professor, what do you think? What comes to mind? Bad news. Like, you're a liberal Canadian professor, and he's never come out as a Christian, but he's done an unbelievable, and this hurts my heart, because his first book, 12 Rules for Life, was a pivotal book in my life. I read that book. I was like, wow, this guy's onto something. I heard, whatever he had to say, and the level of grifting, sorry, I have to say, the level of grifting towards Christians as he's been doing over the years without being able to admit that he's a Christian in front of kids, and the way he reacted, I don't know if he's okay.
Dude, here's the thing. I love Jordan Peterson. Yeah, I still love Jordan Peterson.
What is your value of him lately?
He's helped so many people, dude. He's helped so many
but
people
that's the
dig their
past.
way
That's
out
the
of like
past.
deep like.
That's the past. Like Jordan Peterson, the last year and a
I know,
half.
but we should have some like he has fought so many wars on behalf of men, and if you don't think that will eventually wear you down and do something to cripple the mind, when he had everybody against him, all of Canada, he was the only one who was standing against compelled speech when they were trying to mandate that people had to use preferred pronouns in Canadian universities. So to your point, I get Canadian professor, it fits the stereotype, but he literally fought against every single one of those negative Canadian professor stereotypes. He's helped so many people. He has been very open about how he's struggled with mental health, even going on things like SSRIs, etc.
That was when he was.
He's waging war with the fucking woke mind virus. Sorry for swearing, by the way. I'm fired up.
It's just struggling.
Waging war on the woke mind virus for so long, it's gonna wear you down. It's gonna weaken you a little bit. And even like a year ago, I started like noticing he was like crying a lot more on podcasts and stuff and becoming more emotional. I think he's done what he's need to do. He can just take a beat now and step back and not ruin the legacy that he's created. He's done so much good for people. I will not take that away from him. And sometimes people who are so intellectual, right, which he is, you can't deny.
You're very wrong.
He's very intellectual.
Well, he doesn't have a proper enemy anymore. I mean, like his stuff that he came out for and is known for is like evergreen. It'll always be there and always be important. But he
was never a friend.
What do you mean he was never a
You
friend?
mean
Yeah,
to
he
Christianity specifically?
No. He was never a friend of the right.
Who was speaking about that stuff when he was doing it? Who was speaking about? Who else was doing it?
He's sitting right now. What's his name?
Not about right now.
Goofball, the Jim. He has this channel, New Discourses. What's his name?
Oh, James Lindsay.
He's sitting now with James Lindsay.
I used to love James Lindsay, and I used to love Jordan Peterson. But the drop off in those two guys,
they're showing the true
colors.
colors.
They're showing their true colors, and I think on the Christianity point in particular, it's very significant because James Lindsay is a diehard atheist, but has been invited to speak at Turning Point pastors' conventions.
Wow.
Because he allied himself with the right, allegedly. But then as soon as he no longer had leftist enemies to knock down, now he's the biggest proponent of, we got to crack down on the woke right, and the right is engaging in identity politics. And he's burning through all the credibility he built. Jordan Peterson in the same way. He came out and said he was moving towards faith in God. That was great. I will rejoice and celebrate when a lost soul is won for Christ. That's the greatest thing we can celebrate. But he holds himself out now as some kind of spiritual expert. He does these series with Daily Wire where he's going through Genesis, he's going through Exodus, he's going through all the books of the Bible. But what he's doing is he's analyzing scripture like it's literature and for the purpose of psychoanalysis.
Mm-hmm.
He's not doing it in a way that takes it literally. He has never shown that he takes scripture and things of faith literally.
Is he interpreting it though?
Theoretical exploration, like he's focused on the theology aspect and the psychological lessons that can be taken from the theology. But that's what I was saying. Sometimes people who are so smart, they have trouble getting out of their head and getting into their heart. And a relationship with God and Jesus is in your heart. And for him, I think that he's just so brilliant. He's so focused on the intellectual side of things that he can't get from his head to his heart. I remember talking about these lecture series a year ago and people warning me and saying like, hey, probably don't take that for like a massive grain of salt for spiritual development, maybe like personal development, psychological development. So it's just knowing the function that things serve. And that's not a function to actually get you closer to God. It's more of a psychoanalysis.
Brandon, we'll go to you for final thoughts here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the guy's an overall positive force. I think that sometimes, like, when your actual enemy gets defeated, then you kind of have a hard time. That's why he's grifting. He's trying to, like, find the next thing to be passionate about. Because, I mean, right, like, yeah, you can tell he's not passionate about the Christianity situation. He was passionate about free speech, and now that, like, that demon or dragon's been conquered. I don't know so much in Canada, but I'll always be appreciative of like the things that he said and things he fought for at first because I mean that needed to be done and nobody else was really doing it.
He didn't fight for anyone. You
What
guys
do you
are
mean?
you guys
He
are
got fired.
insane.
He got fired.
He literally can't be a professor
Oh,
he got
anymore.
fired.
His whole
Okay,
career,
hold on,
he had his
hold
whole
on.
life.
He fought for himself. It was the most selfish fight in the planet. They were coming after him in particular. He wasn't like a martyr for the right. What are we talking about?
No one said
Why did he get fired
They were
then?
coming after his ass in particular. He was always on the left. He's still on the left. And now that the right is a popular thing, he's just trying to see how he fits in on the right.
No, it's probably
yeah, I
it's
agree
the
with
fact
that
that
part,
left
Brandon.
values change like we've been talking
mark
about
my
this whole
words.
time.
Mark my words. He is gonna in the next few years. He's gonna do like damage to the right. And James Lindsay, they're gonna do damage to the right like we've never seen before.
Okay, he needs to take a step back, and we should all pray for him. Honestly,
Yes.
like pray for Jordan Peterson. That's my final
That
thought.
is
he
that is the
peaked.
good place to conclude here because we are a little bit over time, but we wanted to make sure we got all this in. This was an important discussion.
I'm not done
And-
yet.
and- I know.
I'm not
we
done.
could do whole other
Bring it
segments
next
on it. And
week.
honestly, we might just. We've got a lot of good stuff in the works for everybody. Having gone to these one long episodes per week frees us up to do a lot more stuff. We got some good things cooking that we can't wait for you all to see.
Yes.
But in the meantime, thank you all very much for joining us. It has been a pleasure talking with you guys. Pleasure getting to interact with all of you watching at home. Thank you for being here. On behalf of myself, the fellow panelists, Valuetainment, Vinny, and Rob, who will be back with us soon, hopefully by next week. Thank you all for being here. Make sure you check out Brandon's show. Brandon, when's your next episode coming out?
This Friday.
Okay, this Friday.
Yes.
Amy's got Dangerous Conversations going live on Saturday. Make sure to subscribe to both of their channels. Humberto, is there anything you want people to subscribe to?
Minect the crap out of me.
For what?
Huh?
For what?
I want to get a jet ski.
Okay.
All right.
I think he was asking what should people message you with
Yes.
their inquiries.
Oh, no.
What
Okay.
value
if
do you provide
If you
them?
want any chance at making it in the YouTube game, you got to talk to me. All right? Like, I am the gate that keeps people away from
wow.
this. I have the sauce. Just message me. It's the best money you will spend.
He is the supreme leader.
And as always, I am available on Twitter and Minect for story insights and tips, or if you just want to talk about writing Unusual Suspects or just anything else we do around here. So on that note, we will let you guys get on with your evening. Thanks for being here. See you next Wednesday. Have a great night, everybody.
Peace.
Moment, not a response to the last thing that was said.
Hey, Humberto.
Is that a good thing?
Humberto,
Yes. It's
can
good
you
to
come
find
to
out.
the control room real quick?
Oh, boy. Did I say something?
No.